Su Qian continued analyzing. If the person was a martial individual who rode horses long-term, their thighs would definitely have calluses. If they're not from the military, then they're someone proficient with weapons, a trait commonly seen in northern individuals. According to Su Qian's knowledge, northerners are good with bows and arrows. Even the average adult man can draw a bow. For martial artists in several northern states, a standard outfit includes a blade and a bow. At this point, Li Miaozhen thought of a counterargument. Or perhaps they're a garrison soldier. Su Qian replied. Who would send a garrison soldier to deliver a message? If I'm not mistaken, this person is most likely a martial artist from the north. As for what they were trying to convey, who sent them, and who killed them? I have no idea. Su pouted, thinking this annoying man may be lecherous, but he's actually quite capable. Li Miaozhen exhaled a silent breath, relieved, and said, then I'll leave this matter to you. As a night watcher, it's your duty to handle these issues. Su Qian arranged guest rooms for Li Miaozhen and Su, asked the cook to prepare some snacks, and returned to his study. He collected the body, acquired a fragmented soul from the Earth Book, and rode his mare to the Night Watcher's headquarters. He recalled Wei Gong mentioning that northern soldiers were frequenting the area, and that Dafeng suffered several defeats. The civilian officials talked peace, while the Northern King's faction pushed the blame onto Wei Yuan. Removing his role as assistant imperial censor, Su Qian handed the reins of his horse to Li Yuan at the entrance, and hurriedly made his way to Haoqi Tower. However, the guards downstairs stopped him. Suyin Luo, you cannot enter. Wei Gong has just ordered the carriage. He's heading to the palace. Su Qian forced his way in, saying, Wei Gong is going to waste time arguing with Emperor Yuanjing. No need for idle talk. I have something very important. After reaching the top floor of Haoqi Tower, Wei Yuan said impatiently, if you have something to say it quickly. You have 1 T's time. With limited time, Su Qian, already in a bad mood, took out the jade fragment and moved it slightly. If Wei Gong is in such a hurry, I'll make this short. With a snap, a headless corpse dropped onto the spotless, clean tea room floor, staining it. Wei Yuan, startled, frowned slightly and asked, what's going on? Su Qian answered, Li Miaozhen arrived in the capital today, and she's currently staying at my residence. Wei Yuan didn't seem interested in that, his gaze fixed on the headless corpse. He asked coldly, what does that have to do with this body? It has everything to do with it, Su Qian replied. This corpse was found 80 li from the capital, its head cleanly severed. Li Miaozhen, always meddlesome, summoned the dead man's fragmented soul to ask questions, but the soul only said one thing, Wei Gong, see for yourself. He removed the sachet Li Miaozhen had given him, untied the red string, and a wisp of smoke emerged, forming a blurry-faced, vacant-looking man. The man muttered repeatedly, Blood warriors, 3,000 li, Blood warriors, 3,000 li, send troops to suppress them. Wei Yuan's pupils contracted suddenly, his sharp gaze fixed on the soul. After a moment of silence, he asked, what leads to you? Su Qian reported, based on initial analysis, he's from the north. He was killed on his way to deliver a message to the capital. There are no warriors in Dafeng outside the northern region. Wei Gong, the northern situation may be worse than we imagined, but the court has received no corresponding reports. Wei Yuan frowned. None. You suspect the northern king is falsifying reports? Su Qian glanced at Wei Yuan and said, that wouldn't be surprising. What puzzles me is this. If the northern king is falsifying reports, why hasn't the court received any intelligence? The Night Watcher's cases span the 9 provinces. Blood warriors, 3,000 li. How could something this significant be completely unknown? Wei Yuan sighed and said, earlier this year, I assigned most of our cases to the northeast, leaving very few in the north. It's inevitable that news from the north is sparse. Su Qian fell into deep thought. So, most cases were sent northeast. What is Wei Gong up to? Is he trying to fight a god? Returning to the matter at hand, he asked, what does Wei Gong think we should do about this? Wei Yuan shook his head. I'm heading to the palace. I'll take the corpse and the soul with me. You don't need to worry about this matter. Now that Li Miaozhen has arrived in the capital, the Heavenman Pact will soon conclude. The city's security will improve significantly. In the meantime, there's no telling how many spies have infiltrated, but we have people watching them closely. They won't cause much trouble. Remind Li Miaozhen to stay put. This is a sensitive time. Don't leave the city unnecessarily. Don't cause trouble. Stay alert to possible dangers. Su Qian noted the potential threats, and Wei Yuan continued quickly. I'll just outline the possible dangers. First, from within the court itself. Second, from spies of other nations. You can figure out the reasons yourself. I have to go to the palace now. He left the tea room briskly, calling to Li Yuan as he walked. Bring the corpse with me to the palace. In the imperial study within the palace, besides Emperor Yuanjing, were Prime Minister Wang Zhenwen, the Minister of Revenue, and a total of 16 officials and noblemen of rank 3 and above. Standing among the ministers was Chu Xianglong, pale-faced, his head slightly lowered, remaining silent. Emperor Yuanjing had not yet arrived, and neither had Wei Yuan. No need to wait, said the northern king. He's requesting 300,000 and 250,000 dan of grain and fodder. What do you all think? The Minister of Revenue was the first to oppose. In the 36th year of Yuanjing, Jiangzhou suffered floods, and Jingzhou had a drought. Guangzhou is experiencing locust plagues, and the court has repeatedly sent aid to Liangzhen. In Yuzhou and Zhangzhou, the two major granaries of Dafan have little left. We can't gather enough supplies. Emperor Yuanjing, what about reallocating grain from other provinces? Minister of Revenue, even if we collect grain from other provinces, it's time-consuming and laborious. By the time it reaches the Chu border, it may have already been reduced by half. That's not a good plan. While they were discussing, an eunuch stopped at the door of the Imperial study. Your Majesty, Wei Gong is here. Emperor Yuanjing, his face unreadable, motioned for him to come in. Wei Yuan entered silently, and immediately heard the emperor, displeased. This won't do. That won't do. Zhongqing, do you only know how to oppose me? The supervisor of the censorate, Yuan Xiong, was struck by inspiration. Seizing the opportunity, he stepped forward and said, Chan Yuyi, please step aside. Emperor Yuanjing glanced at him in surprise. Han Shou, speak. Yuan Xiong immediately proposed. The court can temporarily create a Yao Yi task. We would assign the responsibility of transporting the grain to the people. Emperor Yuanjing's eyes lit up. This is indeed a clever plan. The Yao Yi system refers to laborers conscripted by the government for unpaid work. They would perform various manual labor tasks. If the people were made responsible for transporting grain, with officials supervising, the court would only need to cover the expenses of the soldiers. The people would provide their own food. This way, the grain would be transported safely without wastage, and a significant amount of costs would be saved. Yuan Xiong sighed with relief. As long as the emperor adopted his plan, the consequences of the civil service exam's aftermath would be minimized. Emperor Yuanjing, pleased, nodded. But then, Minister Wang Shoufu stood up and said firmly, Your Majesty, this plan would harm the nation and its people. Yuan Xiong had failed his duties during the spring planting season. The people must not be disturbed during their farming time. Since ancient times, people's livelihoods have depended on food. No matter what, the people must not be interrupted during the spring harvest. Moreover, last year brought leaving the people with little surplus grain. This plan is tantamount to adding fuel to the fire, pushing people into despair. Chu Xianglong sneered. Wang Shoufu loves the people like his own children. I admire that. But does that mean the people of Chu Prefecture are not also citizens of Dafeng? Is Wang Shoufu indifferent to their lives and deaths? Wang Shoufu retorted calmly. The court stationed 86,000 military households in the north, each granted 6 mu of land. With more than 5,000 military farms, the border regions shouldn't lack soldiers. Chu Prefecture's crops have thrived for years. Even without extra requisition, their reserves could last for months. How is it that they suddenly lack grain and funds? Perhaps those military farms have been taken over by certain individuals. Chu Xianglong, emboldened by his princely backing, showed no fear. He mocked. Have the scholars ever done anything but talk? Have they fought battles, led troops? They sit in the capital enjoying comfort, unaware of how hard it is for border soldiers. Your Majesty, the Manchu invasion is fierce. Several large battles have occurred since last year. The Northern King is a formidable leader, victorious in every battle. But if grain and supplies fall short and the rear cannot provide support, it would delay critical opportunities. The consequences would be unimaginable. Emperor Yuanjing nodded. I know full well of the Northern King's bravery. What is the current situation in the north? Chu Xianglong cupped his hands and replied, The Northern King commands like a god, his valor unmatched. After suffering several defeats, the Manchu forces no longer dare face us directly. Instead, they rely on their army's speed to raid in various places. Our troops, though superior, are becoming exhausted. Please, Your Majesty, grant us grain and supplies, so that the soldiers know. The court recognizes their achievements. The Duke of Chao immediately said, The Northern King has done much for us. We cannot let him down. Your Majesty, delivering grain would be a mutually beneficial solution. If the soldiers' rations aren't provided, it could lead to unrest within the army. A small matter could snowball. Even if there are issues, they can be addressed later. It's not the time to withhold grain and rations. Wang Shoufu then interjected, Your Majesty, this matter needs to be carefully deliberated. Emperor Yuanjing ignored him, continuing to ask, What do the rest of you think? Seeing this, the ministers hesitated briefly, then agreed to fully support the Northern King. Wang Shoufu was about to argue further, but saw several of his allies in the court, subtly signaling him to tread carefully. Everyone knew the emperor trusted the Northern King greatly. After all, he had once been given the imperial sword of state. Otherwise, why would he have been granted such a high honor? At that moment, Emperor Yuanjing turned away Yuan. Wei Aiqing, you are an expert in military law. What is your opinion? Wei Yuan stepped forward and stated in a steady voice. In times of peace, military households can farm their land and be self-sufficient. But in times of war, the court must allocate rations and supplies. This is a matter of governance. Chu Xianglong smiled. When it came to matters of war, The words of 100 scholars didn't hold as much weight as one from Wei Yuan. Wang Shoufu glanced at Wei Yuan in surprise. They had been rivals for decades, yet Wang now found Wei Yuan's position puzzling. But then, Wei Yuan continued, shifting his tone. However, before proceeding, I must report something to your majesty. Everyone turned to him. Emperor Yuanjing signaled him to continue. Wei Yuan spoke with conviction. A deputy under my command discovered a brawl among martial artists in the outskirts of the city. When attempting to intervene, one side refused to stop and ended up beheading one of their opponents before fleeing. Before dying, that man cried out, "The north is in turmoil." Hearing Wei Yuan's words, the gathered nobles' faces changed. Emperor Yuanjing sharply turned his head toward Wei Yuan. Explain yourself clearly. Chu Xianglong stiffened and said, the north is naturally in turmoil. The Manchu are raiding everywhere and provoking conflict. Wei Yuan, his expression calm, interrupted, so, the Manchu in the north have created a 3000 Li trail of blood. Does General Chu mean to dismiss it as mere looting and plundering? These words caused everyone present to gasp in shock. Emperor Yuanjing even rose from his throne, staring intently at Wei Yuan. Speak clearly. What do you mean by 3000 Li trail of blood? Chu Xianglong hastily said, Your Majesty, that's absolutely untrue. Emperor Yuanjing shot him a frosty glare. Silence. At that moment, Wei Yuan reached into his robes, pulling out a sachet and untying its red string. A wisp of smoke slowly emerged, twisting in mid-air. It morphed into the figure of a vacant-eyed man. Blood along the 3000 Li stretch. Send troops to suppress it. Wei Yuan continued. I have brought this man's body. It's just outside the palace gates. Your Majesty may send someone to examine it. He was a local. Emperor Yuanjing's face darkened, and he ordered, examine the corpse. An elderly eunuch bowed his head, then hurried off to deliver the order. After a tense quarter of an hour, the eunuch returned in a rush, whispering into Emperor Yuanjing's ear. The emperor remained before finally saying, summon the sword arts master for questioning. Then, he instructed the other officials, my lords, please rest in the side hall. Turning to Chu Xianglong, he said, you stay here and explain further. The emperor left the study first, followed by the nobles, guided by eunuchs to the side hall. In the side hall, the Minister of Revenue turned to Wei Yuan, who remained expressionless, and probed, Lord Wei, is this matter true? Wei Yuan spoke in a very cool tone. Does Lord Zhao think I am joking? The Minister of Revenue sighed. Not at all, not at all. If this is indeed true, how many people in the capital would have to die? If there was such a major incident, he continued. Why has the Night Watcher's office received no word? Wang Shoufu also focused on Wei Yuan, his fingers unconsciously tapping the table. It was unclear what he was thinking. 2 sticks of incense passed, and a eunuch entered the side hall, saying, Your Majesty requests the nobles return to the study. Upon returning, the atmosphere in the study immediately eased. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. They saw that the white-robed adept, summoned by the sword arts master, was questioning Chu Xianglong in the study. The answer was unexpected. Chu Xianglong's every word was true. The Northern King had decisively won against the Manchu, but the Manchu guerrilla tactics were indeed causing great trouble for him. The northern border troops were exhausted. The Manchu main force had been stopped at the frontier, so the 3000 Li trail of blood simply didn't exist. Chu Xianglong sneered coldly. I'm not sure where Lord Wei got his information. It nearly led the emperor and the nobles astray. My lord, I'm certain the Northern King has done nothing to provoke Lord Wei. Wei Yuan stepped forward, his voice clear and resolute. What this man said may be true, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the whole truth of the northern situation. Chu Xianglong furrowed his brows and was about to counter, but Wang Shoufu stepped forward and agreed. Your Majesty, I believe Lord Wei's concerns are justified. This is a grave matter that cannot be treated lightly. It must be thoroughly investigated. Emperor Yuanjing said, My lords, how should we proceed with the investigation? Wang Shoufu replied, Your Majesty may continue gathering grain and supplies, and send them to Chu Prefecture. At the same time, a special envoy team should accompany the shipment to thoroughly investigate the situation in the north. Wei Yuan promptly said, a wise course of action. Emperor Yuanjing, seeing the consensus, nodded in agreement. Emperor Yuanjing could only nod in agreement. Meanwhile, at Su's residence, Su and Li Miaozhen sat under a pavilion, watching the young boy practicing his stance in the yard. Aunt and Su Lingyue, upon hearing that more guests would be staying, were not pleased. The former thought that at this rate, their home would become an inn. The latter felt that the 2 women were too beautiful, which posed a threat to her. Li Miaozhen, understanding the situation, took the initiative to build rapport. The Su family is truly a family of martial. I noticed that the young lady is still quite young, yet she's already laying the foundation for martial arts training. Aunt was saddened by this, sighing. I wish she could study for a few years. Not that she needs to master all the arts, but at least become cultured. She's just a foolish girl. Li Miaojin furrowed her brow, looking at the little boy, and replied, though he's rather naive, he's hardly foolish. Su Qian's cousin is a student at Yunlu Academy, and yet he doesn't teach his sister to read. He thought for a moment, then said, Miaojin, while staying at the Su residence, you can help teach the young lady. Aunt looked taken aback, about to refuse, when Su Lingyue preemptively agreed. With a subtle smile, she said, thank you, Daoisli. Li Miaojin, charmed by her gentle smile, nodded. It's nothing, just a small favor. She then noticed the slightly sympathetic look in Su's gaze, but she couldn't bring herself to ask directly, so she made her excuse to leave. Su quickly followed, her voice trembling. She said, Master, that child in this house is terrifying. He wanted to eat me. Li Miaojin casually dismissed it, saying, children speak nonsense. The situation is similar. Don't pay it any mind. Su, still a bit scared, replied, no, I can tell he wasn't joking. That intense, piercing gaze. At that moment, Su Qian leaned in with a chuckle and said, Su, I remember you mentioned that if I agreed to 2 of your requests, you'd serve as my concubine for 3 years. Li Miaojin turned to Su in surprise. When did you say something like that to him? Su placed her hands on her hips and replied smugly, exactly. If you help me rebuild my body and uncover the truth behind my father's execution, not only will I serve you as a concubine for 3 years, I'll even bear you a son. Li Miaojin was stunned. She never expected such thoughts from this young woman. Su Qian silently muttered to himself, I'll have to ask Song Qing to create a 36D body. I don't mind, but I can't let my future child suffer. Turning to Li Miaojin, he said, first tell me everything you know. Li Miaojin's expression grew serious. Su was born in Jiangzhou. Her father was the governor there. In the 15th year of Emperor Yuanjing's reign, he was executed. Originally, the family's women would have been sent to the court of women, but her mother, fiercely proud, refused to enter and poisoned all the women in the household, including Su, with a single cup of poison. However, she had a young brother, who was away studying at the time, and he narrowly escaped. This time, I brought Su to Jiangzhou to investigate what happened back then. I came across something strange. Su Qian's face lit up with curiosity. What kind of strange thing? Li Miaojin sipped her tea before continuing. Su's father was named Su Heng, a genuine Jinshi graduate of the 29th year. In the 14th year of Emperor Yuanjing's reign, for reasons unknown, he was demoted to Jiangzhou as a governor and executed the following year on charges of bribery and corruption. Su Qian frowned and asked, what's the issue with that? Li Miaojin nodded and said, there is an issue. He claimed he never spent time in the capital. Su's soul is intact. When my master discovered him, he had absorbed the yin energy of a mass grave. His cultivation had already reached a modest level. As long as he didn't leave the graveyard, he could continue to exist indefinitely. A vengeful spirit with such cultivation wouldn't lose its memory, unless its memories were wiped during its lifetime. Su speculated, I don't have any memory of that. Perhaps I really never went to the capital. Su Qian shook his head. Anyone who traveled to the capital with family would have had their family members relocate there. I'm more inclined to believe your memories from your previous life have an issue. He chuckled slightly. Since this involves the capital, the Ministry of Personnel should have records, but that's Wang Shoufu's domain. He's a direct rival to Wei Yuan. Without sufficient reason, I don't have the authority to access their records, so don't rush. Wait for an opportunity. Li Miaojin and Su nodded, not having placed much hope in it to begin with. Su Qian asked, what's your brother's name? How old was he when the Su family's misfortune happened? Su thought for a moment and replied, his name is Su Chengji. When our family fell into ruin, he was around 11 or 12. Su Qian felt a headache coming on. So now he's around 31 or 32. Finding this brother-in-law would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. If only Defeng had a well-developed public security system, he muttered. Su Qian said, I'll try to find him for you, but don't get your hopes up. Su gave a small of acknowledgement, understanding how difficult the search would be, and didn't push further. After resolving this matter, Su Qian brought up the second issue. Looking at Li Miaojin, he asked, when do you plan to start the Heaven Man contest? Li Miaojin replied without hesitation, first send a challenge, then set a date. Within 7 days, Su Qian said frankly. Before the Heaven Man contest ends, you'd best not leave the capital. No matter what letters you receive, or who you come into contact with, don't leave the capital. Li Miaojin, are you saying someone will try to harm me? Su Qian sighed. That's obvious. If something happens to you would the Tianzong simply let it go? The land immortal level figure in the thieves' sect is no less formidable than Witness. Su puffed out her chest proudly, saying arrogantly, knowing my master is a first-tier cultivator, who would dare to harm her? Su Qian couldn't help feeling regretful for the ghost's naivety. Your father was at least a scholar, but you've inherited none of his intelligence. It's precisely because Miaojin is the holy maiden of Tianzong that she's a target of interest. The emperor's obsession with Taoism and his efforts to maintain power have led to the chaotic political infighting we see now. This situation has long drawn discontent. The Heavenman contest, to some, is an opportunity to exploit. Moreover, this affair is well known. People from all corners of the martial world are pouring into the capital, and among them are surely foreign spies. All of these people would love for you to die in the capital. March 27th. Moving, starting a business, sewing clothes, traveling, getting married. Today is the day of the exam. It has been exactly 1 month since Wishy's departure. My aunt looked like she hadn't slept at all. Yawning, she said, "Erlang, you're up so early? Mother has already asked the kitchen to prepare breakfast." I said, "Do you want to sleep a bit longer? I'll wake you up at 10. Su Erlang smiled and reassured his mother. "No need, mother. Don't worry. The exam is a ranking test. As a member of the association, my score won't be too low." Su Pingji earnestly reminded him, "Erlang, today isn't just about passing the exam. It's also a chance to restore your good name and completely clear your name of any false accusations. Make sure you do well." Su Erlang walked out while responding, "Got it, Dad. You don't have to worry about me." At that moment, 2 old acquaintances walked in from outside the Su residence. One was a burly monk, the other a swordsman in a green robe. They smiled and greeted him. Su Erlang stiffened, staring at the two of them, and internally fuming. Why do I keep running into these two troublemakers? Su Qian patted him on the shoulder, calming his younger brother's anger. He smiled and said, "They're friends of mine." Then his gaze fell on Li Miaojin. "You're up early too?" The monk clasped his hands together in greeting. He bowed to Li Miaojin. Chu Yuanshan looked at her with a serious expression. A spark of determination lit up in his eyes. Li Miaojin simply nodded at each of them. She made a casual gesture of greeting. The monk started pondering. So that's Li Miaojin. Rather than a holy woman of the Tianzong, she's more like a seasoned general. Right. She spent a year in the Yunzhou military. Chu Yuanshan silently observed her. Her energy was so controlled that it was... But since she was in the capital, it meant she must have reached the 4th rank. Interesting, he thought. After losing to Zhang Kaidai all those years ago, he hadn't faced a 4th rank opponent in a long time. Li Miaojin was also sizing up the bald monk. It should be number 6. The lowly one is number 4. As expected, number 4 doesn't follow the orthodox path of the human sect, as number 1 said. At this moment, Su Qian led the little mare forward. He signaled to his younger brother and second uncle that they could depart. Immediately, the 3 men of the Su family mounted their horses and left. Watching them leave, Su Yuan muttered, "Amitba, I hope number 3 can make it to the top." Chu Yuanshan commented, "If Chen Shangdao gets 2nd place, it will be good enough. After all, he's a student of Yunlu Academy. Though, number 3 has a big secret." Su Yuan's heart skipped a beat. "I'm not sure about the secret." Chu Yuanshan spoke in a profound tone. "If my guess is correct, it's no mistake. Yunlu Academy's prestigious Aishing Hall, the relatives of the former hall leader, are connected to number 3. Of course, all of this is just my speculation with no evidence. Believe it or not, it's up to you." Li Miaojin's expression suddenly turned strange at these words. "You're saying number 4 and 6 don't know that Su Qian is number 3? She always thought Su Xinian was number 3. When they eventually learn the truth, will they recall this conversation? Will they, like me, feel so embarrassed that they'd want to vanish? We'll have to keep it a secret for him." Thoughts ran through her mind. She looked with pity at numbers 4 and 6. Because in that case, everyone can pretend nothing ever happened. Su Yuan and Chu Yuanshan both noticed the strange look in her eyes. A sense of unease crept into their hearts, but they couldn't pinpoint what felt off. The darkness before dawn was the thickest. Surrounding them were 2 rows of guards holding torches, motionless like statues. 400 officials gathered outside the Meridian Gate, waiting for the exam. As a member, Su Xinian stood among them, standing tall and expressionless. Su Xinian squinted and gazed at the distant Jianluan Hall. He could vaguely see the officials inside, facing the civil and military officials. After they finished the court assembly, only then would the exam begin. In this tense atmosphere, everyone suddenly heard a sound from behind. A loud scolding voice erupted. "Yang Qianhuan, are you trying to rebel? Get out of here at once." Confused, a fellow official asked, "What's going on?" But the shouting behind them didn't stop. "Yang Qianhuan, what are you doing? This is the Meridian Gate, the site of the Imperial exam. Are you trying to cause trouble?" The person in white let out a heavy sigh. In a calm voice he said, "You will all fade away with no trace. The river flows on forever without you." These words instantly caused an uproar. Civil and military officials alike were shocked. Those who had just left came rushing back. Some looked grim, others were visibly agitated. The scene became chaotic. More than 400 officials struggled to remain silent. Whispers spread as people turned to look back at the Meridian Gate. Isn't this about Su Qian mocking the other officials? It seems that person in white is from the Division of Astronomy. An official from the Ministry of Rites sternly shouted, "Silence! This has nothing to do with you. Focus on your exam." Anyone caught whispering will be sent home to wait another 3 years. Su Erlang thought to himself, Yang Qianhuan? That name sounds so familiar. Where have I heard it before? At that moment, the voice of the Ministry of Rights official interrupted Su Xinyan's train of thought. Su Xinyan from Yunlu Academy, come forward. Su Xinyan snapped out of it. He approached the red pavilion and took the sealed exam paper from the official. With his head held high, he entered Jinluan Hall. The Imperial exam had only one subject and lasted just 1 day, ending at dusk. As the setting sun cast its glow, Su Xinyan left the palace. Outside the palace gates, he saw his elder brother seated on a horse, holding another horse by the reins. Smiling, his brother waited for him. Your uncle said I should pick you up. How did the exam go? Su Xinyan replied, not bad. If I were a Guozijian student, a top rank would be a sure thing. Su Qian nodded in satisfaction. Good. This is worthy of my reputation. In the future, no one will say you relied on your elder brother's reputation. Su Xinyan sighed softly. Although my elder brother's name is well known, he's ultimately not a scholar. If the Su family wants to stand firm in the capital, we need respect. And to earn that respect, we need someone with a background in the imperial examinations. Su Xinyan thought about his future and said, I just came from Princess Linen's residence. His muscles twitched, and he bowed slightly toward his brother. I may have lost the exam, but I still can't outdo you, big brother. Su Qian tossed the reins to Su Xinyan. You've already stepped away from the imperial examination path. Tonight, I'll treat you to dinner at Fangxi's place to celebrate. Su Xinyan frowned. What about mother and sister? Su Qian replied. I've already told Aunt, we'll be dining out tonight. It's completely normal for classmates to celebrate together after the exam. The next morning, in the spacious and lavish inner plum pavilion, Fu Xiang murmured in her sleep, releasing a sweet, lazy sigh. She stretched her arms from under the blanket, wrapping them around Su Qian's neck. Good morning, Su Lang. Su Qian yawned. Good morning. You should be saying, you were amazing last night. Fu Xiang flirted. Stop. I can't say it out loud. Su Qian leapt out of bed. Did you really speak the truth for once? You little temptress. I have to go to the yamen immediately, or I'll miss the last of the month's work. Fu Xiang smiled playfully. Yesterday, you were the one teasing me, and now you're blaming me? Humph. Su Qian left the inner plum pavilion, heading to the stables to take his mare. As expected, his second brother's horse was missing. This meant he had already left the tavern. He hadn't returned immediately to Su Mansion. Because Zhongli was still at the Division of Astronomy, he was likely going to pick him up. At the Division of Astronomy, Su Qian pulled the lever, and the stone door to the Division of Astronomy opened. He began shouting at the top of his lungs, his voice echoing in the empty halls. Zhongli, I'm here to pick you up. After a moment, footsteps echoed on the straight staircase, leading to the underground chamber. With disheveled hair, Zhongli ascended the steps. Her crisp voice carried a hint of excitement. You're here. Su Qian nodded. Let's go home. Zhongli turned around and shouted into the dark chamber. Senior brother Yang, reflect on your actions carefully. Don't anger the teacher again. Su Qian. What did senior brother Yang do? Zhongli glanced at him and softly replied. Senior brother Yang went to the Meridian Gate yesterday. He blocked the path of the civil and military officials and recited that poem of yours. Lord Zhu and His Majesty were furious, and they sent people to rebuke the teacher, demanding severe punishment for senior brother Yang. The teacher had him suspended and whipped, then confined him to the underground chamber for a month. Only after that did Lord Zhu and His Majesty relent. Su Qian was stunned. He couldn't believe someone would go so far just to show off, but on second thought, he felt a bit regretful. The emperor's wrath led to him being hung up and beaten, and I wasn't there to see it. What a missed opportunity. Outside the imperial city gate, Li Miaojin, dressed in a Taoist robe, was stopped by the tiger guards. Who goes there? Stop immediately. Breaking into the palace is a capital offense. Do not act recklessly. Without haste or anger, Li Miaojin patted her back. With a clanging sound, her flying sword unsheathed. The nearby tiger guards were shocked and alarmed, thinking she intended to force her way into the imperial city. They drew their weapons and prepared for battle. But Li Miaojin merely leaped onto the sword's spine. Her flying sword carried her swiftly upward. The tiger guard captain did not order an attack on her. Narrowing his eyes, he scrutinized Li Miaojin. A flash of insight crossed his mind. A woman in a Taoist robe heading into the imperial city? Could she be the Tianzong Saintess, Li Miaojin? One of the key figures in the contest of mortals and deities, Li Miaojin hovered midair, gazing at the distant Lingbao Pass. With energy channeled through her dantian, her voice resonated with the Tianzong disciples. Li Miaojin, here by my master's order, to spar and debate with the disciples of the Ren sect. The time and location will be decided by the Ren sect. Meanwhile, over at Linen's quarters, the princess had been playing kickball with her maids. She suddenly stopped and asked, Did you hear that? Yes, recalled the maid who had once been spanked by Su Qian. It sounded like a Tianzong disciple issuing a challenge. No sooner had Li Miaojin finished speaking than a cold, distant voice replied from the opposite direction. 3 days from now, at the third quarter of the Mao hour, on the banks of the Gan River. Rinsect disciple Chu Yuanchun will meet you. Overjoyed, Linen said, 3 days from now, I'll make that servant take me to watch. Meanwhile, at Prince Huai's residence, a woman in a long, elegant dress gazed toward the city gates. She smiled and said cheerfully, more drama to enjoy. At a certain restaurant, the two main figures of the contest between mortals and deities had naturally become the center of attention. One of the travelers laughed and said, I heard from the elders that this Chu Yuanqin was the top scholar of the 27th year of Yuan Jin's reign. The swordsman's expression was somewhat sorrowful. Yes, who would have thought he chose to resign from office and became a disciple of Rinsect's Jimming? Even today, he represents Rinsect in battle. A middle-aged man spoke up. I've heard that Li Miaojin is a beauty of unmatched grace. Do you think she could be the pinnacle of the Taoist sect? His friend, seated beside him, replied. The Tianzong saintess rarely. Her reputation is not very well known. I don't know if she is the pinnacle, but there is another rumor in the martial world. 2 years ago, the Fian heroine suddenly appeared. She's said to be the Tianzong saintess. I have a brother from Qinzhou, who suddenly returned home at the beginning of the year. He said he spent the year in Yunzhou, roaming with the Fian heroine to hunt bandits. His cultivation improved greatly. He was the one who told me that the Fian heroine is the Tianzong saintess. The swordsman was filled with skepticism. Then why has she come here? A sarcastic voice spoke up. Naturally, she's done with hunting bandits. At the end of last year, the court sent 2 Jin Luo and a bunch of Yin Luo to Yunzhou. They wiped out the mountain bandits of Yunzhou. The one who handled the situation was Su Yin Luo. He was present during the operation. Apparently, there was a rebellion in Yunzhou. Over 10,000 soldiers besieged the governor's convoy, just when everyone had lost hope. Su Yin Luo alone blocked the way, stopping the 10,000 rebel forces, much like how he recently blocked the civil and military officials. Truly a hero of the Tang dynasty. Were there really such heroes? Both martial artists and commoners were stunned. One man holding off an army of thousands? Can such an expert really exist? That's probably just a tall tale. His companion immediately scolded him. Shut up. I won't allow you to slander the hero of Dafeng. In the tranquil courtyard of Lin Baoguan, Emperor Yuanjing gazed at the Taoist priestess. He sighed deeply. National master. After this battle, it'll be at least 3 months, or maybe even a year. The Tianzong's victory would solidify its power, and the national master would be in danger. The corrupt government is unlikely to intervene in this matter. If they could protect him, and with Luo Yuheng's own strength, it would be more than enough to deal with a Tianzong disciple. Of course, Emperor Yuanjing knew that this was wishful thinking. Among first-rank experts, unless there's a special reason, they almost never take action. Moreover, the corrupt government has been cold towards Rinsect, so hoping they would intervene to stop the Tianzong disciple is unlikely. Emperor Yuanjing sighed. If the national master cannot step into the first rank, even if Chu Yuanqin wins, the result won't change much. There is a rule between the Tianzong and Ren sections. Before the contest of deities, disciples of both sects must first battle each other. The losing side must allow the winner 3 moves during the actual contest. But Luo Yuheng is only a second rank, which is far too weak compared to the Tianzong disciple. Even if Chu Yuanqin wins, with his 3-move advantage, he would still lose in the end. Emperor Yuanjing asked, is there a way to delay the contest? He did not suggest preventing it, because that wasn't feasible. Even as emperor, he couldn't interfere with the second rank or first rank experts' sect rivalry. Luo Yuheng's sharp eyes glimmered. But if the result is inconclusive, that will be sufficient. Emperor Yuanjing pondered this. Unless Li Miaojin agrees. Luo Yuheng paused for a moment and then said, there is a simpler way. At the Su residence, Zhongli eagerly asked, who do you write these daily sketches for? Su Qian replied, don't worry about it, just write them. Just as he spoke, they suddenly heard the sound of a cat meowing. Turning to look, they saw an orange cat jumping down from the wall. Su Qian immediately gestured for Zhongli to rest. He had business to attend to. The orange cat, walking elegantly, approached him. It spoke, Li Miaojin has issued a challenge. I have something I need your help with. Su Qian silently looked at the Taoist cat. Are you planning to trick me again? The orange cat offered a sly smile. Master Su, when have I ever tricked you? Su Qian sighed. When you come to me looking like this, I get a bad feeling. The orange cat chuckled. For someone as perceptive as you, your intuition is indeed sharp. Su Qian looked at him in astonishment. This cat managed to say such shameless words. So matter-of-factly, he cautiously replied, Taoist, you have the right to speak, but never forget that I have the right to say no. The orange cat got straight to the point. I want you to help stop the contest of deities. Su Qian nodded calmly. Tell me your plan and reasons. The orange cat's amber eyes fixed on Su Qian. Do you know why there is a contest of deities? Su Qian tersely replied, a dispute over the Tao, I guess. The orange cat nodded slightly, and then shook his head. Yes and no. It's said that long ago, the founders of Ren sect and Tianzong got into a fight during a debate, and both were gravely injured. Shortly after returning to they both passed away. Before they died, they each made a decree. Every 60 years there must be a contest of deities. Over the centuries since then, Ren sect and Tianzong disciples have fought a contest of deities every 60 years. There have been deaths, injuries, and draws. Eventually, it became a tradition. Before a contest, the disciples from both sects would first compete. The winning side would gain a 3-move advantage. Su Qian frowned and asked, I heard from Miaozhen that there's a deeper motive behind the contest of deities. Taoist, do you know what it is? The orange cat replied in a sly tone. If I say I don't know, will you refuse to help? Su Qian matched his tone. If I refuse, will you not tell me? The orange cat sighed. The true reason, only the Taoist masters of the Ran and Tian sects know. But based on countless clues over the years, we can piece together some information. Roughly 2,000 years ago, a Tianzong master secluded himself in meditation, missing the contest of deities. Then he disappeared. 600 years ago, a Tianzong master, for reasons unknown, ventured into the Wushan cult headquarters. He returned gravely injured and missed the contest of deities. He, too, disappeared. As for Ren sect, they have never produced a first-rank terrestrial immortal, but every Ren sect master who won the contest of deities would quickly attempt to break into first rank. Su Qian grew increasingly convinced that the Taoist sect's inner workings were deeper than he thought. Missing the contest causes Tianzong masters to vanish, while winning the contest drives Ren sect masters to immediately strive for first-rank terrestrial immortality. What exactly is going on behind the scenes? Pulling his thoughts back, Su Qian said, I understand the contest now, but you still haven't explained your reason. The orange cat's expression grew serious and heavy. I have a deal with Luo Yuheng. He has promised to assist me in cleansing the Earth sect. So, I wish to delay the Ren and Tian sect's battle. I don't want any accidents to happen to him before the Earth sect's issue is resolved. If the contest happens as scheduled, Luo Yuheng will likely meet a tragic end. Su Qian was moved. He couldn't help but admire the lengths to which Taoist Golden Lotus would go. He truly was a dedicated Earth sect disciple. So much effort to clean house. Su Qian sighed, spread his hands and said, but how could I, a mere silver-ranked official, stop the contest? Taoist Golden Lotus smiled enigmatically. I'm not asking you to stop the masters of the Ran and Tian sects, but you can stop Chu Yuanqin and Li Miaozhen. Master Su, don't you want to make a name for yourself? Don't you want to impress the martial world gathered in the capital? Show yourself a bit. Make a splash. Su Qian muttered inwardly. I'm not Yang Qianhua. I don't like showing off. He asked doubtfully, you want me to join the contest of deities? That's not a good idea. First, I can't beat them. Second, even if I disrupt the fight 3 days from now, what about 5 days later, or 10 days later? The orange cat shook his head lightly and said, making a move requires strategy. The same goes for form. If you charge in unprepared and without reason, Li Miaozhen and Chu Yuanqin naturally won't pay you any mind. Even if you manage to disrupt this fight, you won't be able to stop the subsequent fights, but you can give yourself a reason. Su Qian asked, what reason? The orange cat's tone was almost scolding. For instance, you can claim that in your esteemed opinion, the Ren and Tian sects are of no real consequence, that their disciples are merely second-rate. Then you express your eagerness to challenge them and publicly call them out. Engage them in a wagered duel. If they can defeat you, contest of deities continues. If not, it waits until they're capable of beating you. Su Qian was dumbfounded. Is that even possible? Such a flimsy excuse? Golden Lotus Taoist snapped. That's because you've never roamed the martial world. Martial artists issuing challenges are always straightforward and brash. If the challenge is refused, they'll shame them until they agree. Li Miaozhen and Chu Yuanqin are both proud individuals. If you embarrass them in front of everyone, they're very likely to accept the challenge. And once they agree, it's a done deal. Even the Tianzong elders won't have a say. They'll simply urge Li Miaozhen to deal with you quickly. Su Qian asked again, and if Li Miaozhen can't beat me, does that mean the contest won't happen? The orange cat smiled mysteriously. I've always admired your knack for finding a way, Master Su. You're just too confident. I've told you, you can't stop the contest of deities, but you can delay it. Just delay it for a year or so. Of course, this will offend Tianzong. Others might not dare, but you can handle it. Su Qian scowled. I can handle it? Or you just say I can handle it? Why, exactly? The orange cat smiled. Because you're young. Because you have ties with Li Miaozhen. If someone else tried to interfere, Tianzong's elders might not intervene directly, but they would order Li Miaozhen to eliminate the intruder, possibly even granting her special treasures or elixirs. There's no doubt about it. Tianzong's Taoists are quite cold-hearted. Su Qian asked, what do I get out of it? The orange cat replied calmly, trust me, if Luo Yuheng lives, you'll receive a reward beyond imagination. That's one of the reasons I came to you. Su Qian sighed and said, Taoist, I understand what you mean. Chu Yuanqin and Li Miaozhen are both members of the Heaven and Earth Society, but due to their sex orders, they won't hold back. If there are casualties among them, no one wants to see that happen. As for the Tianzong elders' displeasure, I don't think it will be a big problem. Taoist, you wouldn't harm me. So, I refuse. Why did the tabby cat smile suddenly freeze? Mutual assistance is the core principle of the Tiandihui, Su Qian said. Su Qian replied calmly. Last time we went looking for Lena, we almost died underground. We got no benefits, just nearly lost our lives. The tabby cat raised a front paw and pointed at him. Nonsense. You absorbed the contract from the Jade Creek. Su Qian sighed. What about this time? What will I gain this time? Master Taoist, you must understand, my reputation wasn't easy to build. Commoners admire me as the great hero of Dafeng. If you want me to face off against Chu Yuan and Li Miaojin, who are far stronger than me, you'll ruin my image as a lone warrior who single-handedly took down thousands of rebels. You'll tarnish my reputation with the Buddhist sect. The tabby cat gritted its teeth. Then what do you want? Su Qian showed a pure smile. 2 conditions. First, I want a treasure. What treasure? I haven't decided yet. Let's just say you owe me one. But when I ask for it later, you can't refuse. The tabby cat pondered for a moment, then nodded. Fine, but don't ask for something outrageous. Su Qian straightened his face and continued. Second, I want a Qingdan pill. The tabby cat's eyes widened. That's impossible. Qingdan pills, like Tuatai pills, take decades to refine. Tuatai pills are hard to make because of rare ingredients. Qingdan pills are even more complex and expensive. Their cost is several times that of a Tuatai pill. The tabby cat gritted its teeth. This brat doesn't get it. If I had a Qingdan pill, would I have asked you to find Luo Yuheng at Ling Baiguan to beg for a pill? The Earth sect lacks nothing except money. Su Qian smiled slyly. Master Taoist, why say such things? We're all on the— Would I make outrageous demands of you? You don't have a Qingdan pill. But the Ren sect has it. Everyone knows that the Ren sect is rolling in riches. The tabby cat ignored him. It darted onto the roof and disappeared. Su Qian muttered to himself, even the seasoned Taoist likes to take advantage of others. It's worse than mooching. The so-called Qingdan pill is a medicine that purifies one's essence, strengthens the muscles and bones. It can significantly improve the defense of a 6th-rank copper skin iron bone martial artist. Su Qian's Vajra divine skill has reached a bottleneck. Although there's still a bit of residual blood from the sacred monk, he hasn't been able to absorb it. It just sits in his body, wasted. He's been worried for a long time about how to break through with his Vajra divine skill. But today, when the tabby cat Taoist came looking for help, a solution finally came to mind. At Ling Baiguan, the distant emperor's eyes brightened as he imagined the roles and beauty of those involved. What's the plan? Luo Yuheng's red lips parted slightly. Send someone to stop this conflict between heaven and man. They must be a peer who doesn't fear retaliation from the heaven sect. The emperor frowned slightly, pondering. If we intervene directly, the heaven sect will undoubtedly come to seek revenge. Perhaps we can mediate through a wager. Luo Yuheng nodded, but then shook her head. If a wager is established, it means fighting to the death. The cost is too great. Your Majesty need not sacrifice a young talent for this matter. Getting involved in a heaven-man conflict means turning a heaven-ren sect agreement into a 3-party pact. The heaven sect would react in one of 2 ways. 1. Order Li Miaojin to end it quickly, with the heaven sect providing some degree of assistance. 2. Send an elder from the sect to eliminate the troublemaker with a single strike. There's no chance of leaving unscathed. If you wish to back out of the duel, first, the objective hasn't been achieved. The Heaven-Man conflict will proceed as scheduled. It's only been delayed by a few days. Secondly, the Heaven Sect's Taoists may not agree. In that case, someone will still slap the contract breaker to death, and they'll do it in a completely justified and honorable manner. The Emperor's gaze shifted away from Luo Yuheng's face. Well then, Yang Qianhuan from the Four Swords is the best choice. He's not afraid of retaliation from the Heaven Sect, and he has enough strength to deal with Chu Yuanjin and Li Miaojin. Luo Yuheng nodded slightly. He's right. Yang Qianhuan is the best candidate. No one is more suitable than him. The emperor immediately called for the old eunuch from the palace courtyard. He instructed, send someone to consult with the governor right away. After a brief exchange, the eunuch returned with the governor's reply. The governor said, Yang Qianhuan is currently suppressed beneath the stargazing tower. Please choose another capable person. The emperor was somewhat disappointed by the result. His tone was filled with helplessness. He's always done things by the book. Other than following protocol, there's no real initiative. His complaint was thick with frustration, because all along, the tasks that needed to be done were completed without fail. But when it came to the things that should not be done, even he, as the ruler, couldn't make it happen. The emperor sighed helplessly, lost in thought about a solution. When the emperor left, Luo Yuheng also sighed lightly, gazing at the lake, slowly losing focus. The emperor returned to the palace, sat in his study, and fell deep in thought. Then, he quickly grabbed a pen and wrote a list. He handed it to the old eunuch. Have the people on this list summoned to the palace. Half an hour later, Nangong Qianro, guided by the eunuch, crossed the plaza and entered the study. She glanced around. In the study, there were two elite guards in full armor. No one else was present. Nangong Qianro recognized these two. Both were young, fourth-rank martial artists, currently serving in the Imperial Army. Fourth-rank martial artists are rare in the provinces. Throughout the 13 provinces of Dafeng, a single province might only have a handful, but in the capital, the power center of Dafeng, the number of fourth-rank masters is significantly higher. However, there is only one third-rank martial artist in the entire region, the Northern King. A third-rank martial artist, capable of regenerating from injuries, has already transcended ordinary troubles. They are a world apart from fourth rank. Soon, the emperor arrived and asked, "Do you know why I summoned you three to the palace?" A young man from a noble family stepped forward, bowing, "Please instruct us, your majesty." The emperor replied slowly, "In 3 days, the Heavenman duel will take place. I hope you can intervene and stop it." He laid out the pros and cons to the three. Then he asked, "Who among you is willing? Regardless of the outcome, you will all be promoted 1 rank. The martial artist of common birth showed a fleeting glimmer of intrigue in his eyes. The noble-born martial artist, however, was hesitant and cautious. Nangong Qianro remained expressionless. The emperor then offered a 2-rank promotion. Even so, the noble-born martial artist still shook his head. "Please forgive me, your majesty. My abilities are insufficient." The commoner martial artist followed suit, bowing, "I am unable to take on the responsibility." The emperor nodded calmly. "You two may leave. Nangong Qianro, stay." As the emperor paced back and forth, he remarked, "One of them disapproves of me stepping in for the Ren sect. At its root, he disapproves of my cultivation path. The other is simply afraid of death. He is already wealthy and comfortable, and doesn't want to get involved in the Taoist dispute." Nangong Qianro looked at the emperor evenly. "Your majesty left me behind because you think I will act?" The emperor nodded. "Nangong Qianro, I know who you really are, and I know what you want." Nangong Qianro's pupils contracted slightly, but she quickly returned to her usual calm demeanor. In the end, she refused the emperor. "I made a promise to Lord Wei. Before he returns my name to me, I won't leave his side. Besides, I'm no match for Li Miaojin or Chu Yuanjin, and if the two of them join forces, I wouldn't stand a chance. To ensure the Heavenman agreement proceeds as planned, they will surely team up first to eliminate outsiders. It's not that I'm unwilling, it's that I simply lack the ability." The emperor didn't insist, and waved her away. Nangong Qianro bowed and exited the imperial study. The emperor sat with a grim expression, sighing repeatedly, as if nothing had gone smoothly in the past few months. He summoned the old eunuch and instructed, "Tell the Grandmaster that I'm unable to do anything. He must handle it himself." The old eunuch responded, with his signature nasal voice, and left. After they departed, the emperor's expression turned even darker. Such a stubborn woman. Willing to face the Heavenman duel, but not to dual cultivate with me. If that's the case, then go ahead and decide the outcome with the Heaven Sect's Taoists. At Lingbaiguan, a young eunuch spoke hesitantly. "The Grandmaster knows. Your Majesty has no way out." He continued, "You understand? Your Majesty cannot force them." Luo Yuheng, without opening her eyes, responded softly, "I see." The eunuch dared not linger and left quickly. A quarter of an hour later, a slender tabby cat appeared atop the courtyard wall. "Sister Luo," said the cat, its tone slightly disdainful, "what are you doing here?" The tabby cat replied in a bargaining tone, "I need to ask you something. Does the Run sect have the Qingdan pill? This pill is difficult to make, and incredibly valuable." Luo Yuheng replied with a frown, "Why would a member of the Earth sect need a Qingdan pill?" The tabby cat felt a bit awkward, thinking, in her eyes, "Am I just some poor relative who takes what he can? I don't need the pill myself. I'm here on someone else's behalf." Luo Yuheng snorted and said mockingly, "You're not just a poor relative. You're a shameless scoundrel of a Taoist. My father once made a batch of Qingdan pills," she continued. "2 were taken by the emperor. I have only 1 left. But these pills are hard to make and extremely precious. I won't give it to you. Not unless you trade a fragment of the earthly book for it." The tabby cat thought bitterly, "How could I possibly give her an earthly book fragment? The Run sect wouldn't even use it." He sighed and said, Forget it. Forget it. I was just trying to find someone to help my junior sister. Someone who could delay the Heavenman duel. The only condition they had was the Qingdan pill. But since my junior sister refuses, I have no choice but to turn them down." Luo Yuheng abruptly stood up, demanding, "Who is this person you found? How confident are you in their abilities? Do you understand that once you're involved in a Heavenman conflict, it's nearly impossible to withdraw?" The tabby cat spoke calmly. "He's someone you know well, someone you even considered dual cultivating with." The light in Luo Yuheng's eyes dimmed. She frowned. "He's only a 6th rank martial artist. Even with the Vajra divine skill from Buddhism, he's at best a 5th rank. And Chu Yuanjin and Li Miaojin are far beyond ordinary 4th rank." The tabby cat replied unhurriedly, "Don't be so quick to dismiss him. Su Qian's Vajra divine skill is no ordinary 5th rank ability. I even suspect that his physique might surpass that of some 4th rank martial artists. Even Li Miaojin's spear techniques couldn't scratch him." Luo Yuheng was stunned, finding the idea absurd, but after a she realized it might not be impossible. On this side of Curiosity Tower, Wei Yuan nodded approvingly after listening to Nangong Qianruo's report. He said, "You handled it well. Getting involved in the Tianren conflict is harmful and pointless. It's a dispute among the thieves' sect. Outsiders meddling is asking for trouble." Yang Yin commented, Run sect's swordsmanship is unparalleled, while Tian sect's techniques are unpredictable. But when it comes to Dan-related matters, Qianruo fears no one. Still, facing two opponents alone, defeat is certain. Nangong Qianruo, Dandan Isle, in the capital city, there's no one of inferior quality who can handle both of them simultaneously. Perhaps Yang Qianhuan's teleportation technique could maintain an undefeated stance, but once a fight begins, he wouldn't last beyond 10 moves. It's not a sorcerer's forte. Wei Yuan said, for the Tianren conflict in 3 days, you all gold ropes should go and observe. Consider it a chance to broaden your horizons. High-level Taoist sect battles are rare. At dusk, Su Qian heard the meowing of a spy cat. The orange cat carried an inferior item in its mouth, and lightly opened its mouth to He pulled out the wooden stopper, and an indescribable fragrance wafted into his nose. The orange cat said, Luo Yuheng said that as long as you give your best effort, the city worship list will be yours. Su Qian's face lit up with joy. With this, plus the fight in 3 days, my unbeaten record in this life is bound to reach new heights. It can also prevent numbers 2 and 4 from both suffering losses. A real win-win. He couldn't help but marvel. The national master is truly wealthy. I suddenly don't feel like struggling anymore. The orange cat glanced at Su Qian, saying, know yourself and your enemy, and you'll win every battle. Chu Yuanqin and Li Miaojin are both experts. I think you need to gather some intelligence. You already know the swordsmanship of Ren sect. As for Chu Yuanqin's self-created nurturing sword technique, you should learn it too. I have nothing to say about him. What's key is Li Miaojin. You know nothing about Tian sect's techniques? Su Qian laughed. Material barrier. The orange cat coughed and said, material barrier. Haha, that's a very apt description. Li Miaojin is also skilled at flight and evasion techniques. These come from the Taoist 7th grade Artifact sect's Divine Shadow Dao. Artifact sect techniques can break through all illusions. They are untouched by worldly impurities. Your Buddhist lion's roar has no effect on Li Miaojin. Moreover, there are thunder techniques and 5-element spells. These spells require alignment with time and place. The battle site is at Weishui. Be cautious. Water-based spells have become the core technique of Tian sect. It's about uniting with nature. He has a transformative ability to grant spirituality to all things, connecting them to himself, and compelling them to fight for him. Simply put, your sword may no longer be your sword. Even your belt might try to strangle you. Rocks at your feet might suddenly jump up and hit your knees. Even your own hand might suddenly lift up and slap you. Su Qian was startled. What the? Tian sect spells are this powerful? This is what they mean by, there's no loyalty in the world, just the lack of encountering me. In my eyes, everything is a double dealer. After bidding farewell to Taoist Golden Lotus, he immediately returned to his room to absorb the list of medicinal powers. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. As dawn broke, Chu Yuanqin woke up. He dressed neatly and steadily, shouldered his gear, and covered his old classmate's blanket as a courtesy. At this moment his friend said, Round pillow, don't go too hard in the Tianren conflict. If you lose to Tian sect, it's a great chance to eliminate Ren sect. Without Ren sect, the emperor will focus more on governance. Chu Yuanqin shook his head. You don't understand. 10 years ago, I already saw through it. Even without Ren sect, there will still be other Taoists. There will still be other national masters. Even if none of that exists, the first visionary would still cultivate Tao. He desires immortality, and no one can stop him. Chu Yuanqin left the mansion, and saw Heng Yuan standing by the street under the clear night sky. Heng Yuan, tall and sturdy, put his hands together in greeting. Master Su sent me here, he said. This humble monk will accompany you. Chu Yuanqin nodded slightly, and walked alongside Heng Yuan. After walking for a while, he turned his head to look at the middle-aged monk. What do you want to say? He asked. Heng Yuan's gaze shifted to the sword on Chu Yuanqin's back. He whispered, I'd like to ask you not to draw that sword. Chu Yuanqin didn't agree. That would be disrespectful to Tian sect, he said, and to Li Miaojin. Heng Yuan looked distressed, but he didn't speak again. Over at the Su household, Su Xinyan woke up early. Walking down the street, he turned a corner, and saw a luxurious carriage parked by the roadside. Wang Simu opened the curtain, revealing her charming face. Smiling, she said, Master Su, you're on your way to watch the Tianren battle, aren't you? Su Xinyan looked at her calmly, surprised that she was greeting him. Wang Simu continued, smiling, since we're headed in the same direction, why not ride together and have some tea on the way? This time, Su Xinyan didn't refuse. After he got into the carriage, Wang Simu quickly instructed the maid to pour some tea. Smiling, she said, I heard from my father that disciples of the Tian sect and Ren sect are extraordinary talents. Their skills are on par with the gold robes of the court. I've also heard that the Tian sect saintess is as beautiful as a flower, a peerless beauty who can bring down kingdoms. Su Xinyan nodded calmly. His overly indifferent attitude left Miss Wang a bit deflated. She cautiously tested the waters, asking, "Doesn't Brother Su find the Tianren conflict interesting?" Without a word, even Brother Su was drawn into it. Master Su shaking his head, he said, "I know who the Tian sect saintess is. If he were to live in my residence from now on." Miss Wang widened her eyes in disbelief. "Stop joking. How could the Tian sect saintess live in your home? Are you old acquaintances?" Su Xinyan didn't explain further, and sipped his tea. "The Tian sect saintess and my elder brother are friends. They met during last year's Yunzhou incident. She fought alongside my elder brother against enemies, defeated rebels, wiped out bandits, and formed a deep camaraderie." Wang Simu quietly breathed a sigh of relief. So it was with Su Luo that she shared a deep bond. It turns out, the Tian sect saintess is connected to Su Luo by a lasting friendship. Her face now wore a gentle smile. "I heard from the mansion's steward," she said, "that the Tian sect saintess Li Miaojin is at the 4th rank. Chu Yuanjin, who's matched against her, must be no less skilled. In Jinsheng, it's rare to find someone so young with a 4th rank cultivation." Su Xinyan calmly remarked, "The two protagonists of the Tianren duel are indeed dragons and phoenixes among men." Wang Simu followed up, "But in a few more years, Su Luo will surely be able to match swords and techniques with them. After that, everyone in Jinsheng will say Su Luo's talent rivals that of the Northern King." Su Xinyan's expression remained calm. "My brother's cultivation still falls short. All this flattery is nothing but overpraise." In her heart, Wang Simu analyzed. He seems very proud. Indeed, praising Su Qian was a surefire way to please Su Xinyan. At this moment, a guard outside the carriage said, "Miss, the Tianren duel site is just ahead. The carriage can't go any further. Please step out." With that, the carriage came to a slow stop. Su Xinyan and Wang Simu stepped down one after the other. As they looked around, they saw that both banks of the Weishui River were packed with people. There were swordsmen and blade-wielding martial artists, as well as city folk coming out to watch the spectacle. In the crowd, they noticed a group of young ladies waving their hands and calling out, "Miss Simu, come chat with us." Wang Simu heard someone calling her. She looked over in surprise. Covering her mouth, she coughed a few times. "Please forgive me, Your Highness. I caught a cold a few days ago. I've taken some medicine and am almost better, but even so, if I passed it on to you, it wouldn't be good." The young woman looked regretful, advising Miss Wang to rest well. At that moment, Huiqing's clear, cold eyes, like jade, swept over her. In an instant, Wang Simu felt as if all her little schemes and hidden thoughts were laid bare. Huiqing smiled softly, but said nothing. Yet it felt as though everything had been said. Wang Simu quickly grabbed Su Xinyan and hurried off in another direction. She finally exhaled and said, "I'm always nervous around Huiqing. She's just too clever." Su Xinyan gave a slight nod. His calm heart and steadfast will allowed him to face any situation without fear. Even if someone saw through his inner thoughts, he didn't care. Just then, the sound of rushing wind came from above. A figure in blue robes flew on a sword over the Weishui River. Then another rush of wind followed, as a woman flying on a weapon arrived swiftly. She landed opposite Chu Yuanjin. Seeing this, the citizens of the capital fell silent. Encountering someone who could fly and stand in the air, it was something they only read about in books, or heard from storytellers, a being akin to a celestial immortal. Compared to that, the often seen Su Luo riding on horseback seemed less impressive. Li Miaojin fixed her gaze on the swordsman opposite her, bowed her head in respect and said, "In today's battle, I'll give it my all." Chu Yuanjin returned the gesture, saying, "The duel is between us cultivators. The Tianren struggle now rests on our shoulders alone." Chu Yuanjin knew that if Luo Yuheng could not break through, the Tianren conflict's outcome would be grim. If he avoided the battle now, Ren sect would simply send another disciple to fight. Rather than have Ren sect lose face by being defeated by Li Miaojin, he might as well face her himself. At least he could gain the upper hand for 3 moves, and it would repay Ren sect's favor of giving him the sword. Chu Yuanjin shouted, "Everyone, clear the stone formation." The spectators on both sides of the Weishui River retreated in a wave. The Tianren battle was about to begin, and countless eyes were fixed on the two figures in midair, tense and excited. Suddenly, the resonating over the Weishui River, the flute's tone was so out of place that it disrupted the rhythm of both Chu Yuanjin and Li Miaojin, causing their rising momentum to falter slightly. The onlookers turned toward the sound of the flute and saw a black-sailed boat drifting closer. On the bow stood a tall, straight young man. A young woman stood on tiptoe, craning her neck to see. "Always stealing the spotlight," she muttered, pouting. "He's taken the lead roles away from the two main characters." Huiqing frowned, fixing her gaze on the approaching Su Qian at the bow of the boat. She felt puzzled. What could Su Qian be planning, making such a high-profile entrance? The princess turned her head away and huffed. She didn't like Su Qian at all. He was frivolous, lecherous, and indiscriminate. Any woman would catch his fancy. On top of that, he was arrogant and ostentatious, lacking moderation and restraint. Su Xinyan's expression turned awkward, and he coughed lightly to explain. My elder brother just really enjoys playing the hero. In his view, this flashy entrance by his elder brother was both embarrassing and cringeworthy. Observers should remain in their place as observers. Wang Simu said nothing, but simply smiled sweetly at him. Deep down, she thought, Su Xinyan really does admire his elder brother. Many people suddenly understood. This young man is rather thoughtful. Coming here by boat, accompanied by music, such an unusual entrance, effortlessly overshadowing Chu Yuanjun and Li Miaojun. To those unaware, it might seem as if he's joining the Tianren duel. Princess Huiqing's expression showed intrigue. What's he up to? Could it be that he really intends to? A low, reciting voice drowned out the buzzing discussions. Standing on the boat with blade in hand, why not seek revenge? Revenge does not turn to grace. Literati in the crowd. Su Yinluo is reciting poetry again. Indeed, a once-in-60 years Tianren duel. How could it lack poetic embellishment? Su Shikue truly has a delicate mind. Chu Yuanjun gave a slight bow. So Su Ningyan came to present poetry. Not bad. Li Miaojun, however, muttered to herself, what nonsense is this poem? It's disrupting my fight. Su Qian continued reciting. Towering above, one need not mention others, born with eyes that overshadow all heroes. Hearing this, Chu Yuanjun internally chuckled. Su Ningyan's flattery is a bit blatant, but as a scholar, I find it quite delightful. It's enjoyable. Li Miaojun, however, felt the poem was directed at her, resonating with her experiences suppressing bandits in Yunzhou. Just as everyone was lost in thought, Su Qian's tone shifted. With a touch of arrogance, he declared, watching a child become a new noble. Anger wells up, tears flow. Before acting again, Chu Yuanjun's expression froze. He stared at Su Qian in disbelief. Li Miaojun, though less educated, picked up on the same undertone, her face filled with shock. She wondered if she had misheard, or if Su Qian had misspoken. Many along the riverbanks shared similar expressions of confusion, their faces blank. What just happened? What did Su Yinluo mean with that last line? A nearby scholar rolled his eyes at him. Such a boorish warrior, he said. If you put that line in plain language, that is, I watched as two young upstarts took the spotlight, rising to fame in everyone's eyes. Feeling indignant, I decided to step in and teach them a lesson. The atmosphere on both sides of the river soared to its peak. Su Qian exuded unmatched confidence, slowly declaring, one stroke will cleave the path of life and death, subduing both heaven and man. In that instant, Xian Huaxing could no longer suppress the whispers of the crowd. The assembled martial artists felt a thrill rush through them, as if ants were crawling up their skin. Excited by this sudden twist, Chu Yuanjun was stunned. His expression incredulous. How arrogant. This man wasn't here to entertain. He was here to provoke. Li Miaojun also glanced over, puzzled. She was filled with confusion. Was he trying to meddle in the Tianren duel? A young woman's eyes widened slightly, then quickly turned toward Huiqing to ask, is that servant planning to fight them? Huiqing replied calmly, what else would he do? The young woman grew excited, but then hesitated. But he's only 6th rank. Could it be that Chu Yuanjun and Li Miaojun aren't really 4th rank? Zhang Lezong laughed and said, no, Your Highness, Chu Yuanjun and Li Miaojun are genuine 4th rank experts. Su Qian cannot possibly be their match. Nangong Qianro sneered. Perhaps he has another motive. He remembered clearly that Su Qian was a specially recruited member who had only reached the peak of body tempering when he joined the Night Watch. Even the minimum standard for a bronze gong was qi refining. In less than a year, if Su Qian could contend with the two main figures, it would mean he could also challenge me. An impossible feat. He might achieve it in the future, but certainly not now. The princess turned her head toward Chu Xianglong and calmly asked, what are Su Yinluo's odds? Chu Xianglong laughed. None at all. Even if he has mastered diamond body art, but his current level is right there for all to see. Perhaps he's stronger than a typical 6th rank, maybe even better than an average 5th rank. But in the eyes of 4th ranks and higher, he's insignificant. Heh, princess, no need to doubt. The gap between 5th and 4th rank is an insurmountable chasm. The princess nodded, convinced by these words. At that moment, Chu Yuanjun spoke up. Master Su, this is a matter between Ren sect and Tian sect. It's none of your business. Don't meddle and invite unnecessary trouble. Li Miaojun said nothing, but quietly conveyed through sound transmission. You rascal, get lost. This isn't a place for you to mess around. I know Taoist Janlian urged you to stir up trouble, but no matter. Given your current strength, you really think you can participate in my duel with Chu Yuanjun? Don't think that just because last time you held your own against me, you're truly a match for me. I wasn't even using my full strength, Su Qian retorted through sound transmission. And how do you know I was using my full power? Then he no longer paid attention to Li Miaojun's annoyed expression. Afterward, he loudly proclaimed, the Tianren duel is a grand event in the martial world. Both of you are outstanding figures of your generation. As for me, I'm not particularly talented, but I'd also like to spar and exchange martial arts skills. Su hereby challenges Rinsek's disciple Chu Yuanjin and Tiansek's Saintess Li Miaojin. If you can win, I'll allow the Tianren duel to proceed as planned. If you lose, you might as well go back and train for a few more years. Of course, you can also decline my challenge. After all, Su's name is renowned far and wide. It's only natural to feel intimidated. The crowds on both sides widened their eyes. Has Master Su lost his mind? They murmured. Does he really intend to step on them to rise to prominence? Still, that didn't stop them from eagerly watching the spectacle. Chu Yuanjin turned to Li Miaojin and asked, "What should we do?" Li Miaojin knew they couldn't refuse. She sighed, "Fine, let's agree. Then we'll knock him out of the running. I've been looking for a chance to teach him a lesson." With that, their discussion was settled. Both of the main characters responded loudly at the same time. All right, let's see what trick Su Yingluo has. Su Qian took a step forward. His body suddenly surged upward. He rushed straight towards the two main characters of the Tianren duel. "Please, show me your skills." Chu Yuanjin suddenly struck. With a subtle movement of his hand, he drew on the river's energy. A loud boom echoed. The Wei River erupted, sending a towering water column 10 zhang high. The water didn't fall. Instead, it transformed into countless tiny swords. These swords rained down on Su Qian. It was as if he were facing a sea of arrows, a barrage of arrows. With this move, it was clear Chu Yuanjin was using divine techniques. Su Qian didn't dodge. He gripped his black gold long blade, raising it to block. The crowd watched, dazed and mesmerized, shocked and fearful. If they were in his place, they would have been shredded to pieces by the barrage. Su Qian's figure was pushed back. He slid for dozens of zhang before coming to a stop. He then clasped his hands together. A golden circular shield suddenly expanded around him. The dense sword feathers came at him. They smashed into the shield, shattering. This was the change brought about by Su Qian's mastery of the Vajra divine skill. At this point, the Vajra divine skill could generate a solid energy shield. It was no longer just relying on the body to endure the attack. Of course, the shield's defense was weaker than the body's. But once Su Qian advanced further in his training, the shield would be as strong as his body. Not only Chu Yuanjin and Li Miaojin, but also the onlookers were astonished by Su Qian's strength, especially the golden shield. This was a divine technique that even the great master Heng Hui didn't possess. Chu Xianglong was suddenly stirred with excitement. When his cultivation failed, causing his meridians to break, he had once doubted Su Qian's claim of mastering the Vajra divine skill. But seeing it now, he realized Su Qian truly had mastered it. It turned out, Su Qian only lacked the Buddhist foundation, which caused the skill to backfire on him. Chu Yuanjin stretched out his hand and pressed down. Then, he slowly withdrew. From the surging river, a giant sword 3 zhang long rose, entirely formed of water. The giant sword roared forward, slamming against the golden shield. The sound of water crashed like muffled thunder. The shield trembled violently. Just then, Li Miaojin's pupils turned translucent, like glazed crystal, cold and indifferent. With a sharp sound, the blade on Su Qian's back unsheathed itself automatically, striking the shield. It coordinated with the giant sword, shattering the Vajra divine skill's protective barrier in an instant. The giant sword forced Su Qian back dozens of zhang. He tumbled and landed awkwardly. The onlookers were dumbstruck. The two of them working together had broken the barrier, leaving the once dignified Su Yingluo in such an embarrassing state. Young Master Lu exclaimed, "What incredible defensive skill." It took two of them to break it. The double-blade sect leader shook his head, saying, "Still far off. Toughness alone isn't a strength. At best, it just lasts longer." Su Yingluo lacks a decisive winning move. Chu Yuanjin glanced at Li Miaojin, curiously asking, "Just now, was that Tian sect's unity of heaven and man technique? Incredible. It's so hard to defend against." Li Miaojin responded mildly, "Rinsek's swordsmanship isn't bad either." Chu Yuanjin chuckled, raised his arm, and pointed his sword skyward. "There's better to come." In an instant, the martial artists present felt their weapons begin to tremble, the vibration growing stronger. Suddenly, the weapons broke free from their owner's hands, soaring into the sky. In a crowd, they surged toward Chu Yuanjin. The now unarmed martial artists were both alarmed and furious. They were as agitated as children weighing 200 pounds. The double-blade sect leader struggled desperately, managing to hold onto a treasured weapon he obtained from the heavenly sword. "Relieved," he said, "that was close. I almost lost you." Chu Yuanjin moved his sword hand slightly, manipulating the formation of airborne weapons. The weapons formed a grand sword formation, weaving through the air. Suddenly, the weapons veered sharply downward, all aiming at Su Qian. Su Qian shouted, "Good. I need this kind of battle to temper my spirit. Like forging iron, every heavy blow makes me more refined." At the same time, Li Miaojin seized the opportunity. Her pupils turned to glass again, emotions fading into indifference. She filled Su Qian's black gold longsword with her will, causing it to rebel once more. It slipped from his grip, slicing deeply into his chest. This strike finally shattered his golden body. Su Qian couldn't handle the twin onslaughts of attacks. Inevitably, he became a sitting duck, and just like that, man and blade plunged into the river together. A splash echoed as water sprayed into the air. Li Miaojin remarked, "That stab should hurt him plenty, but it won't be life-threatening." Chu Yuanshan nodded. "It'll teach him a lesson. It's better than being ordered by Tianzong to kill him." The onlookers could barely accept what had happened. They couldn't believe Su Qian had lost so quickly. A wave of disappointment washed over them. They finally realized that their idolized Su Qian was truly no match for the two warriors. But Zhang Lezong commented, "Better than I expected. A golden arhat who follows the Tao, managing to hold his ground against two fourth-rank experts for this long, is already remarkable." Hui Qing stared at the river and sighed silently. The gap between 6th rank and 4th rank is just too vast. He's already very skilled. Biao Biao worried aloud. "That idiot won't be okay, will he?" Hui Qing reassured. "A 6th rank warrior won't be done in by a wound like that." The princess snorted, reckless as always. Her voice carried a teasing lilt, as if reciting a playful chant. Su Xinyan instinctively took a few steps forward, wanting to retrieve his brother from the river, but his rationality held him back. After all, his brother's strength meant the injury wasn't life-threatening. Seriously, he thought, if he can't handle it, why show off? The reputation he earned in those matches vanished in an instant. Su Xinyan silently cursed his brother's foolishness. He kept his eyes locked on the river. The moment his brother surfaced, he'd take him back to the capital to get medicine. Beneath the dark river, the currents surged. Su Qian adjusted his posture underwater. He sat cross-legged, his hands pressed to his dantian. He felt his blood boil, each vein searing with pain. This sensation, he'd felt it before, after consuming the Qingdan. Now, the lingering medicine in his body, mixed with the residual blood from the rushed through him at once. His wounds began to heal rapidly, the power within his brow spreading swiftly through his body. A figure made entirely of pure golden light took shape. It shot up into the sky in an instant. Above, Chu Yuanshan arrogantly declared, "The troublemakers have withdrawn. Now, it's just you and me." But as soon as he finished speaking, a sense of unease stirred in his heart. Just as the people on the shore wondered why they hadn't fought yet, a faint golden light suddenly appeared in the river, and it rapidly expanded. The river seemed to glow like molten gold. With a loud roar, a massive pillar of water shot up from the surface. A golden light broke through the water, and it shone brighter than the sun itself. It dazzled the crowd, making it hard to keep their eyes open. The figure surged through the waves. It slammed heavily onto the riverbank. Rocks flew everywhere, like dark cavalry charging. Su Qian retracted the golden light, stretching his body with a slow, composed tone. Don't rush. It hasn't even started yet." The first cheers erupted from the common folk. "I knew it. As long as Su Yin Luo shows even half his strength from the duel, these two are no match for him." Yang Yin stared wide-eyed, unable to stop himself from stepping forward a few paces. He doubted his eyes. That wound on his chest, how could it heal so fast in just a few moments? Could it really heal completely in the span of a single incense stick? Chu Xiaolong's throat bobbed. He swallowed. His eyes couldn't hide the glint of admiration. It must be the Vajra divine art's mysterious effect. It allows one to have the power of bodily regeneration even at a low rank. I must offer this to Lord Jinbei. With Lord Jinbei's peak, 3rd rank strength, his insight could easily grasp some of it. Even without cultivating Buddhist teachings, he could understand a thing or two. And with the addition of the bronze talisman, Lord Jinbei might just master the Vajra divine art. At that time, as the one who made the greatest contribution, I might be taught the art directly by Lord Jinbei. The princess heard the disgusting sound of a man swallowing. Her expression twisted with disgust. Su Xinyan, relieved, spoke up. "My older brother is always confident in his actions. Since he dared to join the battle of the celestial beings, he must have something to rely on. A wise man plans before taking action. That's what I've always taught him." Wang Simu smiled, her demeanor as radiant as ever. Su Yin Luo, in both civil and martial pursuits, has impressed countless people. Li Miaojin regarded Su Qian with an astonished gaze. "How did your Vajra divine art improve so suddenly? Were you holding—" Chu Yuanshan roared internally. "That makes no sense. I've encountered Master Jingxi before. He's practiced the Vajra divine art since childhood, and yet he's nowhere near this level after just a month. How is this possible?" Chu felt like he was in a surreal dream. Su Qian quipped, "Thanks to you both for clearing my meridians and helping my Vajra divine art reach a new level. Now it's my turn to counterattack." When the crowd heard this, realization dawned upon them. So that's why Lord Su took the hits, to refine his Vajra divine art. The two combatants suddenly felt immense pressure. "No matter what, we have to take him down first. We'll combine forces to try breaking his Vajra divine art. Otherwise, once we're exhausted, it'll be nearly impossible to wear down his will. At that point, we might just lose here." Chu Yuanshan's face grew grim as he said, "I agree." In the next moment, countless flying swords once again surged towards Su Qian, but this time, he dealt with them effortlessly. The attacks felt no more than mosquito bites. Li Miaoxin's expression turned sour. His defense is terrifying, she thought, but all he can do is take the hits. How can that threaten us? As soon as she said this, Su Qian stamped the ground hard, causing it to cave in before launching himself into the sky like a cannonball. He charged straight at Li Miaoxin. Li Miaoxin easily dodged, scoffing. What's the use of jumping so high? Brute force will never prevail in the end. Chu Yuanqin seized the opportunity. The moment you land, you're just a sitting duck. But just as they were speaking, Su Qian silently pulled out a book, tore out a page with a rip, and held it in his hand, channeling energy through it. He then chuckled. It's time to show you the power and terror of a Confucian's tongue. I have invisible wings. As he spoke, a pair of wings, unseen by the naked eye, yet clearly present, appeared. Su Qian flapped these wings, making a graceful turn, once again targeting Li Miaoxin. Li Miaoxin calmly responded, her pupils taking on a glassy sheen, causing Su Qian's clothing to rebel. His collar tightened, attempting to strangle him. His hat suddenly dropped over his eyes, obscuring his vision. At that moment, Su Qian let out a furious shout, and his chi erupted, shattering his clothes instantly. He tore another page from the book, channeled more energy through it, and declared an order. My speed has tripled. His golden body instantly caught up, without needing to see. He charged directly at Li Miaoxin. Li Miaoxin was knocked flying. Yet she swiftly formed a simple hand seal with one hand. A small, miniature version of herself flew out, and silently entered Su Qian's brow before vanishing. It re-emerged from the back of his head. Flying midair, Su Qian suddenly froze, as if he'd lost consciousness, and began plummeting straight down. Li Miaoxin immediately warned, Su Qian's spiritual strength is insufficient. Finish him with the new sword. Chu Yuanqin unleashed waves of sword energy. They struck Su Qian like hammer blows, sparking bright flashes. But unfortunately, they couldn't break through his spiritual defenses. Li Miaoxin felt the ache in her arms as she braced herself. The earlier impact had nearly broken her arm. A surge of unnameable anger rose in her heart. With a flick of her wrist, she pulled out 9 command flags as if by magic. She waved them into position, forming a 9 palaces formation, trapping Su Qian within it. Black smoke began pouring into the formation. The air was instantly filled with ghostly wails. Black smoke swirled chaotically, occasionally forming faces, either snarling or filled with anguish. Witnessing this scene, the citizens of the capital turned pale. So many ghosts. Are these ghosts going to harm people? This woman is so wicked. Using such vile methods against Su Yinluo, the princess staggered backward in fright. He was terrified of ghosts. He often imagined, when sleeping alone at night, that a blood-drenched ghost woman with disheveled hair would appear at the foot of his bed. Biao Biao hid behind Huiqing in fear, and even the eldest princess, known for her composure, turned pale. You're a phoenix's daughter, Huiqing reminded, protected by celestial energy. Normal ghosts can't harm you. What are you afraid of? Biao Biao jumped up and down, still worried. But what if the servant gets eaten by the ghosts? Huiqing decided not to respond. A noble onlooker shouted, it's said that Taoists excel at raising and controlling ghosts. Seems that's true. Another noble chimed in, his tone dripping with schadenfreude. Even with an unbreakable golden body, Su Yinluo cannot withstand the ghost's spiritual attacks. They recalled how Su had once faced countless ministers at the Noon Gate, alone with his sword. Now, however, any insult toward him would likely lead to officials filing complaints afterward. Yet all such attempts had been blocked by the emperor. This was why the civil officials harbored such disdain for Su Qian. Suddenly, rays of golden light pierced through the oppressive black smoke. The ghosts in the 9 palaces formation screamed, as if confronted by their nemesis. Countless wailing spirits vanished in the golden radiance. Su Qian's figure reappeared before the audience. A radiant golden core floated above his head. Nan Gongqian muttered in disbelief. Taoist golden core? It's said to be impervious to all laws, untainted by the impurities of the mortal world. Just then, Chu Yuanqin appeared before Su Qian like a specter, holding a blade formed from fine stone fragments. He fiercely slashed at Su Qian's forehead. This time, he wielded a new sword, a blade that could cut both flesh and spirit. But before he could even relax, Su Qian held up a piece of paper, already almost burned to ash, with the word rebound clearly visible. Chu Yuanqin heard the sound of burning paper. Just as he was about to stop it, Su Qian silently chanted, I can reflect attacks. His spiritual power multiplied tenfold. Chu Yuanqin felt a sudden weight on his scalp, followed by a tearing pain in his spirit. Taking advantage of the moment, Su Qian headbutt Chu Yuanqin. Blood streamed down Chu Yuanqin's forehead, and his spirit nearly left his body. Relying on his last bit of clarity, Chu Yuanqin reached out and finally grabbed the cocoon on his back. Su Qian's expression shifted, realizing he had gone too far in the fight. He leaned close to Chu Yuanqin's ear and whispered something quietly. Chu Yuanqin's body went rigid, and then he slowly released his grip on the sword. He sighed helplessly. I've lost. Without delay, Su Qian moved on, beating his invisible wings as he rushed toward Li Miaojin. He had no time to lose. The power of the Confucian law marrow was immense. And once the rules reset, the backlash would be terrifying. Though his spirit was now 10 times stronger, the aftermath would bring excruciating pain. Li Miaojin, as the holy maiden of the heavenly sect, wasn't completely unfamiliar. Though she didn't know them perfectly, she was aware of the basics. Without hesitation, she took to her sword and left, flying low over the river. Her pupils turned glass-like, and the entire river responded to her command. Pillars of water sprang up to obstruct Su Qian, attacking him. Though they couldn't harm his spirit-shielded body, they succeeded in buying time. Su Qian tore off another sheet of paper, ready to burn it. But he suddenly wavered, seizing the chance. Li Miaojin waved her hand, sending a sword strike, but the flying sword struck Su Qian's body, as if hitting iron. It didn't harm him at all. Gritting his teeth, Su Qian tore off another page, and prepared to cast a spell. A pillar of water shot straight at the paper. It disrupted the Dragon King's crooked smile. Li Miaojin smugly said, "Such a thick-skinned guy. It's truly annoying. I'll soak all your paper. Let's see how many more spells you can use." But before she could finish speaking, a flame rose from Su Qian's palm. He had another sheet of paper hidden in his clenched hand. The previous one was just a distraction. He had already anticipated Li Miaojin's move. As the paper burned, Su Qian solemnly declared, "Lay down your blade. Turn back now." In mid-flight, Li Miaojin suddenly veered, flying straight towards Su Qian. She willingly collided into his arms. With a loud boom, the two crashed into each other, tumbling into the river. The entire Wei River roared, waves surging dozens of feet high, washing the shores again and again. No one could see the fight at the riverbed, but everyone knew it was fierce. The battle raged on for a quarter of an hour. The once clear Wei River turned into a muddy torrent. Miao Miao clutched her chest, hearing her heartbeat as if it were her ribs. One beat after another. Huiqing clenched her hands in her sleeves. The princess lightly tapped her toes, her bright eyes scanning and searching the river surface. In front of everyone's eyes, the river's once calm surface erupted again. A figure shot out of the water, landing ashore. In his arms was a young woman in Taoist robes, now unconscious. The princess's mouth opened slightly. If not for her status, she would have shouted in excitement. But the commoners on both shores had no such reservations. Cheers and applause erupted. They offered unabashed cheers and praise to the dim-lit young man. Even Biao Biao joined in, jumping up 3 feet high, caring nothing for the princess's image or dignity. Su Qian held Li Miaojin, gazing at the excited crowd. His eyes swept across the dumbfounded martial artists, across the array of different expressions. He raised his hand gently. Then, he flapped his invisible wings and flew into the sky with Li Miaojin. The effects of the Confucian magic were starting to fade. He had to return home before it wore off. If he fell in the capital, the image he painstakingly built would collapse. Now, his Vajra divine art had reached a small milestone. There would be no more thorns until he reached the 4th rank. The advantage was that his defense was now comparable to 4th, or even 5th rank, perhaps even stronger. But his real combat power still fell far behind. Of course, the most important thing was that Taoist Jinlian still owed him a treasure. He needed to carefully think about what to ask for. Chu Yuanjin watched as Su Qian's figure disappeared. In his mind, a line of poetry kept echoing. "Today I reveal to you who has grievances." It was the second half of a poem Su Qian had whispered in his ear. In that instant, Chu Yuanjin was overwhelmed with realization. He loosened his grip on his sword. No longer did he dwell on the outcome of the divine human struggle. He murmured, "I've gazed upon my sword for years. When it is unsheathed, it will shine brilliantly. It will slay God. I thought I'd draw it in this battle of divine and human, to defeat Li Miaojin, and repay humanity for the gift of the sword. But I was wrong. Li Miaojin, with her righteous deeds and noble character, should not die by my blade. If I were to kill a good person for selfish reasons, it would become a heart demon. Su Ningyan was saving me." Chu Yuanjin took a deep breath, his heart filled with complex emotions. Su Ningyan had because he foresaw this day would come. "Today I reveal to you who has grievances. This was the true reason I nurtured my sword." He gazed longingly at Su Qian's distant figure. The princess looked accusingly at Chu Xianglong. "You said the gap was huge. Why did this kid win?" Chu Xianglong widened his eyes, instinctively wanting to explain. But recalling the battle just now, he realized any rebuttal would sound hollow. Nangong Qianro had a complicated expression, feeling a burning sensation on his face, as if he'd been slapped. He still couldn't believe Su Qian had really won. Zhong Jinluo felt conflicted, realizing that despite his years of hard training, he might not even defeat a novice from 6 months ago. Though Su Qian relied on Confucian magic to win, he still managed to defeat 2 4th-rank experts. That meant he could defeat Zhong Jinluo too. Meanwhile, at Lin Beiguan, a humble man from Qingshan silently walked in. Rinsect Taoists immediately gathered around. Chu Yuanjin had returned. The divine human battle was over. Did you win or lose? Chu Yuanjin shook his head, sighing, I lost. The Ren sect Taoists were devastated, their chatter stopping abruptly. Ignoring their despair, Chu Yuanjin headed straight for Luo Yuheng's courtyard. He bowed deeply, and Luo Yuheng gently nodded. I already know the outcome. You had your reasons for not drawing your sword. I won't blame you. Ren sect had cultivated our dynasty's aura, yet its lifespan turned out to be so short. Such is heaven and earth. No one can change it. Chu Yuanjin sighed helplessly. He was about to explain, when Luo Yuheng spoke first, comforting him. There's no need to blame yourself. I said before, it's not your fault. Chu Yuanjin's expression turned peculiar. Clearing his throat, he said, National Master, I lost, but Li Miaojin didn't win either. Su Qian, for some reason, intervened in the divine human battle midway and defeated both me and Li Miaojin. The divine human battle hadn't really started yet. Luo Yuheng paused, a light flashing in her beautiful eyes. She looked at Chu Yuanjin. Tell me how he defeated you both. Chu Yuanjin gave a bitter laugh. Actually, he relied on external forces. He had a Confucian book filled with spells. But blades and magic tools are also external forces. A loss is a loss. Luo Yuheng said confidently, relying solely on Confucian spells, he couldn't have beaten both of you. Hearing this, Chu Yuanjin's expression turned odd. Looking at Luo Yuheng's captivating face, he said quietly, at that time, I meant to ask you, how did Su Qian bring the I couldn't break through his defense without drawing my sword. Master, he's only been practicing Vajra divine art for a short time. How could he have reached such a level? Luo Yuheng responded lightly. A few days ago, a cat came to me, asking for a pill. It claimed it could help delay the divine human battle. Chu Yuanjin was stunned. A cat demon entering Lingbao Pass in feline form, discussing the divine human battle with the master. It had to be either an old acquaintance of the master, or someone from the Taoist sect. After thinking for a moment, he quickly zeroed in on a suspect, Taoist Jinlian. Continuing to speculate, he imagined the master and Taoist Jinlian had struck some deal. The latter would help delay the divine human battle, and the former would pay an appropriate price. Delaying the divine human battle meant deploying Su Qian, and the price was providing the pill. That greatly boosted. It was then that Chu Yuanjin saw the light. He realized that the shock the national master expressed upon hearing Su Qian's victory over him and Li Miaojin wasn't feigned. It indicated that the master had lacked confidence in this deal. Chu Yuanjin bowed and said, before Li Miaojin breaks my spirit, I won't provoke another divine human battle. You can rest assured. With that, he bid farewell and left. Shortly after he departed, a ginger cat leapt onto the wall. Its amber eyes glowed as it stared at Luo Yuheng. Luo Yuheng sighed. I didn't expect he could really go this far. The ginger cat said calmly, this proves my theory was correct. He harbors a secret within him. When he escaped from the Great Tomb, he told me his victory over ancient poetry was due to Jianzheng leaving a hidden trump card within him. The cat chuckled. He thought I was just an ordinary Earth sect Taoist. Pretended to believe his nonsense. That day, I happened to see his progress and strength grow rapidly. It only deepened my suspicion. So I encouraged him to act, to see just how strong his body really was. But then he willingly asked for the pill, absorbed its power effortlessly, and advanced the Vajra divine art to the minor success stage. Luo Yuheng's gaze shifted. What's your theory? The ginger cat pondered for a moment, then said, based on my observations of him and Jianzheng's maneuvers, I suspect the secret within him is connected to Buddhism. Don't you think it's odd that Jianzheng specifically chose him for the fight? It's as if Jianzheng was deliberately sending him into Buddhism to practice the Vajra divine art. Luo Yuheng's face remained calm. Individually, it's not strange, but when you consider all these clues together, it becomes quite peculiar and very unusual. The ginger cat laughed. Jianzheng's wife, the Buddha's disciple, and that strange, charismatic junior sister. If you don't act now, they might not agree to duel cultivate with you later. Luo Yuheng looked up and glared at the cat. You seem quite pleased. The ginger cat replied leisurely. Of course, Su Qian himself, the more secrets he has, the less ordinary he is, the better my chances of achieving my goals with his help. Luo Yuheng said with a smirk. All the gifts he's received come with a price. Senior brother, you're celebrating too early. The ginger cat's expression froze. His body is full of hidden dangers. When the reckoning comes, I hope he can survive it. By then, his fellow Taoist sister will have to lend him a hand. Luo Yuheng reflexively replied, of course. Then she caught herself and said angrily, who's his Taoist partner? Get out of here. At the palace, a young eunuch ran. Excitedly he exclaimed, great news, your majesty. The elderly eunuch frowned and asked, Chu Yuanjin won, right? But so what? All he's done is secure 3 early moves for the master. The gap between the second and first ranks can't be bridged in 3 moves. The young eunuch exclaimed, "No, no, the divine human battle never happened." Suyin Luo stopped it. Only then did Emperor Yuanjing inquire further. "Explain." The young eunuch immediately relayed the message from the guards, including Su Qian's appearance, his mastery, and the course of the battle. The elderly eunuch chuckled. "So now, your majesty need not worry about the master." "Oh, Suyin Luo is truly impressive. It's oddly reassuring." After saying this, he noticed Emperor Yuanjing deep in thought. It was unclear what he was pondering. Emperor Yuanjing finally snapped out of his reverie. He seemed to speak to the eunuch, yet more to himself. "I remember. Even the northern king wasn't as good as him back then." The elderly eunuch and the young eunuch immediately bowed their heads, not daring to comment further. Meanwhile, a conflicted gentleman returned to the watchman's bureau. Zhang Lozong thought for a moment and said, "Why don't we go see Lord Wei together and inform him of this matter?" Nangong Qianro sneered. "To plead Su Qian's case?" Yang Yin, whose expression was ever unchanged, said indifferently, "It wouldn't hurt to talk about his miraculous medical skills either." The view from the top floor of the tea house was calm as the wind outside gently returned. Let me guess who won. Li Miaozhen, with a calm foundation in the 4th rank, had never heard of Chu Yuanjin's unconventional cultivation method. The two of them should have been evenly matched. But I heard Su Qian say that Chu Yuanjin had created his own technique, a 3-foot blade hidden in its sheath, not drawn for years. If he were to make his move, Ji Luomen listened as Wei Yuan spoke, like a strategist analyzing the result of the celestial contest. They tried several times to speak up and stop him, but Wei Yuan noticed their subtle actions. Seeing Yang Yan's uncomfortable expression, he furrowed his brows and asked, "What's the matter?" Yang Yan nodded immediately, and Qinsheng spoke. The adopted father, Su Qian, won the celestial contest. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the Ji Luomen members finally returned to normal. They no longer had to awkwardly watch the display. Wei Yuan was momentarily stunned. Then, he said with disbelief, "What did you say?" Zhang Lozong let out a bitter laugh and explained, "At the hour of Shun, Su Qian forcibly intervened in the celestial contest. He challenged 2 disciples of the thieves' sect, and he declared that only by defeating him could they participate in the contest. Although Su Qian, he indeed defeated 2 4th-rank experts." Wei Yuan remained silent for a long time, unable to calm his thoughts. Then, he recalled his earlier analysis and explained, "I see now. This is something I didn't anticipate." The members of Ji Luomen quietly chuckled inside, but their professional training kept them from smiling openly. Wei Yuan's tone remained calm. "You may leave for now. I need quiet to read." The Ji Luomen members immediately bowed and quickly exited the awkward scene. At the same time, Wei Yuan sat down, took up a brush, and quickly wrote several notes. He called for someone. Li Yuan's voice was gentle as he said, "Send these to the Ji Luomen members." Just as the Ji Luomen members left the tea house, they couldn't wait to share a laugh. "It's rare to see Wei Gong make a mistake. It just feels so refreshing." Yang Yin calmly remarked, "You're all so easily entertained." But just then, they heard Li Yuan call out from behind them, "Please wait a moment, Ji Luomen members. Wei Gong has notes for you." Puzzled, the Ji Luomen unfolded the notes to take a look, and froze in place, dumbstruck. "On duty for an extra month? Because I occasionally sneaked out at night without permission? When have I done that? I only slipped out to visit someone once." Nangong Qianro's lips twitched. "I got docked 3 months of salary? Because I pushed a death row convict too hard?" Zhang Kaidai grimaced. "I'm docked 2 months' pay? Because I defeated Chu Yuanjin back then, and now he has strategies that rival mine?" Wei Gong thinks I've been slacking off in my cultivation, but I'm already at the peak of the 4th rank. Without a fortuitous opportunity, there's no way to advance to the 3rd rank. Yang Yin smirked. "I can't believe it. No note for me." The Ji Luomen all turned to look at Yang Yin, their fists inexplicably itching. Inside the tea house, Wei Yuan tapped his fingers on the table, muttering to himself, "A body comparable to the 4th rank. Vajra, divine art. Su Qian, that's Su Qian," he sighed, stood up, and left the tea house. He gave an order, "Prepare a carriage. I'm heading out." Meanwhile, at Su Manor, Su Qian awoke to find it was already past lunch. Su was sitting by the bedside, watching him worriedly. "You're awake." Su Qian sat up, clutching his forehead. He said hoarsely, "How long have I been asleep? My head feels like it's splitting open, but the aftereffects of the Confucian magic aren't too bad." Su chuckled. "You call that not too bad? Do you know you've died once again?" Su Qian looked at the ghostly woman in confusion. "What do you mean?" Su wrinkled her nose. "Technically, your soul left your body. If it doesn't return within 7 days, you'd really die. It was my master who retrieved your soul. How great is that? And look at you. He treated you as a friend, and you stabbed him in the back. TSK, shameful." Su Qian pressed his finger against Su, and with a pop, the layer of paper tore through. Su turned pale with fright, clutching her chest and running out the door crying, "Master! Master!" Su Ningyan pierced my chest. "Fix me." A few minutes later, a little girl ran in. She had a chicken leg in her hand that had been licked clean and handed it to Su Qian. "Big brother, you're awake. Eat a chicken leg." Su Qian looked at it with disdain. "Where did you get this? And why is it covered in slobber?" The little girl proudly said, "I saved it for you at lunch. Master told me that eating would help you recover. But I wanted it so badly, I licked it a bit and took a small bite. Just a little bit. Pretend you didn't notice, okay?" Su Qian snatched it away. Although he had reservations, seeing how much she wanted to share it, he decided to eat it. The little girl immediately protested. At that moment, the door was pushed open, and in came a heroic woman wearing Taoist robes. She walked in without knocking, just in time to see Su Qian and the little girl talking. The little girl was eating a chicken leg while nodding, apparently listening intently. The holy maiden of the heavenly sect said coldly, "I need an explanation." Su Qian replied, "Taoist Jilian asked me for help. The reward was the pill list. I had no reason to refuse." Li Miaozhen shouted angrily, "You knew the celestial contest couldn't be stopped, so why did you get involved? Is the pill list more important than your life?" Su Qian sighed internally and thought, "You just don't understand. I carry too many secrets. My strength is my confidence." He still asked, "If the heavenly sect ordered you to kill me, would you do it?" Li Miaozhen replied seriously, "No, I wouldn't. If I can't beat you, the elders in the sect would intervene. Believe me, they wouldn't kill without reason. But if they had to kill, they'd have no qualms. If necessary, they wouldn't hesitate to slaughter a whole city." Su Qian instinctively shuddered. Good heavens, the heavenly sect seems scarier than a cult. At least a cult knows it's doing evil, or has reasons for its wrongdoing. But the heavenly sect, are they completely emotionless? He pondered. Will you turn out like that one day? Li Miaozhen was puzzled. In his weary eyes, she saw concern. Pure, untainted concern. After a few seconds of silent staring, she replied quietly, "I will." Su Qian said with a bitter smile, "That's really a sad thing." Li Miaozhen continued, "As for the sect, I'll handle it for you. If it truly comes to the worst, just concede in time. We of the heavenly sect don't bear grudges." After Li Miaozhen left, Su Qian patted Su Lingling's head. "Bring Lena over. I have something to ask her." The little bean sprout immediately waddled out. Before long, a little black figure from the southern border appeared, speaking with an authentic southern border accent. "Lord Su, what's the matter?" Su Qian asked warmly. "Lena, you've been staying at my place for a while now. Is there anything you're not satisfied with?" Lena smiled. "The food here is much tastier than in the southern border. Even vegetarian dishes can be cooked so deliciously. The streets are so wide. The houses so big. The beds so comfortable. I don't even want to go back to the southern border. As long as you don't kick me out, I could stay here forever." Su Qian paused for a few seconds, then smiled. "I'm glad you're happy. We Dafu people are very hospitable. I've always wanted to ask you something. How did you know it was me who picked up the silver? What else do you know? Who told you that?" But the moment Su Qian finished speaking, he regretted it. Not because of the question itself, but because of how he asked it. He had inadvertently revealed his identity as number 5. Lena didn't know he was number 3. What Su Qian had told her before was that he was just a peripheral member of the Heaven and Earth Society. But just now, his question undoubtedly exposed his real identity. It was all Li Miaozhen's fault, making him feel like his identity as number 3 had already been exposed. It was also because of his current state of confusion, not being clear-headed and rational. To his surprise, Lena shouted. She excitedly waved her arms. "I promised Granny Tian not to reveal this to anyone, not to tell anyone, that the information came from her." Su Qian was stunned. He hadn't reacted yet, and blurted out, "The information came from Granny Tian Valley? You're amazing. You've revealed more than I have." Su Qian smiled slyly. "Lena, you're free to not answer me. A gentleman doesn't force others to do things, but we should settle accounts. During the time you've stayed at the Su residence, my sister made you 2 sets of clothes, from high-quality silk, 10 taels per piece, with labor included. That's 30 taels in total. Room and board cost 3 qian per night. You've stayed for quite some time, so let's say 3 taels. And as for meals, Lena, you know how much you eat, right? In total, you've eaten 40 taels worth of food. Now please settle your account." A total of 120 taels. Lena's eyes welled up with tears, and she said helplessly, "But I have no money." Su Qian sneered cunningly. "Then you understand my point." The little girl from the southern border said indignantly, "But I can't break my promise. If I promise someone, I must keep it." Su Qian's expression changed instantly. "Fine, then pay the silver or leave my house." Lena's tears began to fall. Feeling bullied and isolated as a foreigner, she stomped her feet and said, "Fine, I'll leave. I'll go find Taoist Master Jinlian. Even if I starve to death or end up on the streets, I won't betray Granny Tian Valley." Su Qian quickly stopped her. "Wait, Granny Tian Valley is in the southern border, right? We're thousands of miles apart. If you don't say anything, I won't either." How can that be considered breaking trust with someone? Lena questioned. Is that really the case? Su Qian nodded earnestly. Of course. It's like calling it prostitution if you pay for a woman's company, but if you don't pay, it's not considered prostitution. Furthermore, living in a foreign land all alone, sacrificing a bit of dignity to survive is nothing. No one will blame you. I'll stay at Moon Pavilion for 3 days. You're in charge of meals, and I'll eat to my fill. Lena thought it over, and found Su Ningyan's reasoning sound. Deal. But you must promise not to tell anyone. He peeked his head out and looked around for a moment, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. Only then did he return to the table, saying, it's about last time. Number 3 asked me through the about a friend of his who frequently finds money. What's going on? Our ancient clan's Heavenly Valley division is versed in astronomy, geography, stellar phenomena, and terrain. There's nothing they don't know or can't do. So I asked the leader of the Heavenly Valley division, Granny Valley. She said, that guy picking up silver is definitely himself, not a friend. Suddenly, Lena stopped speaking. She stared at Su Qian in shock, her eyes gradually widening, as she showed an extremely astonished expression. Pointing at Su Qian, she screamed, you're number 3. Su Qian nodded naturally. Yes, I am number 3, but I promised Taoist Jin Lian not to reveal my identity. Now look, we've both broken our promises, so it's not a big deal. Lena stared at him, playing dumb. She finally accepted that Su Qian was number 3, and since they had both broken promises, her guilt eased significantly. So she continued, Granny Valley said that 20 years ago, 2 thieves stole something very valuable from a wealthy family's house. Some people have already realized, while others are still unaware. Granny Valley also asked me where you are. I told her you're in the capital. When she heard that, Granny Valley was in disbelief, as if she thought you definitely shouldn't be in the capital. The day before I left the southern frontier, Granny Valley told me one of the thieves was her husband. In our southern frontier, there's a legend that one day the valley god will awaken from the gathering garden, destroy the world, turning the 9 provinces into a world only for valleys. This legend was passed down by the prophets of the Heavenly Valley division, generation after generation. It's an inevitable future. To change that future, grandfather came up with a plan, so he left the southern frontier and never returned. He stayed in the ancient clan's lifespan valley, and it dried up, which signified his death. Granny Valley also told me that Thing is about to be born. If he meets me, I'll be involved. That's why she sent me to the capital to seek opportunities. Lena revealed everything except the existence of 7 Death Valley. She shared everything else. 7 Death Valley? That's what Granny Valley entrusted him to give to someone fated. She thought it had nothing to do with Su Qian, so there was no need to tell him. Su Qian, the head of the family, nodded. I understand. Lena, you can leave now. I want to be alone for a while. Also, this conversation must not be shared with anyone. Lena nodded emphatically, lightfootly preparing to leave, but she didn't forget to remind him, I'll take Lin Yin to Guayu Tower. Remember to come pay the bill later. Su Qian's mind was filled with question marks. He stared at Lena, surprised. Didn't you just use 5 fans? Lena waved her hand and left. I'll take Lin Yin to practice stances later. Won't that make me hungry? Su Qian opened his mouth. The pain felt suffocating. He endured the pain and sat at the stone table. He wrote 8 words on the rice paper. 20 years ago, 2 thieves. 2 thieves. Su Qian stared blankly at the rice paper, lost in thought about Granny Valley's words. What secret lies behind all of this? He pondered for a few seconds. Then he wrote the 3rd line. Only one left. This point should not be doubted. Granny Valley could not be mistaken. As the current leader of the Heavenly Valley division, she would not make such an error in judgment. One of the 2 thieves from back then has already fallen. Finally, he wrote, Stock God, World's End. The end of the world. Su Qian once again stared at the rice paper in a daze. It felt like something was missing. After thinking for a while, he wrote 5 more words after 20 years ago. Battle of Shanhai Pass. Su Qian's eyes flickered. On the ship returning to the capital from Yunzhou, I dreamt of the Battle of Shanhai Pass. I saw Wei Yuan when he was young. This is very unscientific. Because 20 years ago, I had just been born, there's no way I could have experienced the Battle of Shanhai Pass. Therefore, there couldn't be any related memories. After thinking about it, he wrote 5 more words after 2 thieves. 7 rhythms. Granny Valley was adamant. I'm the one who picks up silver, and she believes I'm related to the 2 thieves from back then. But what is the biggest secret about me? It's luck. So, the 2 thieves stole the luck of the great phoenix. The divine book in the ancient tomb said, my luck has been refined. Su Qian took a deep, after only one left, he wrote, Yunzhou sorcerers. The headmaster Zhao Shou said, the forces related to luck are as follows. The 3 dynasties. First, eliminate the dynasties. I'm most likely not a member of the royal family. Next, eliminate Confucianism. The strongest aspect of Confucianism is extending the law, not using luck. Only the tree is an expert in manipulating luck. I suspect the tree is of the first or second rank, a profession related to luck. But who stole the great phoenix's luck and refined it, hiding it in my body? Su Qian once thought it was Jianzheng, because he had been arranged so clearly by Jianzheng. But now he has doubts. Could Jianzheng be the thief? The great Jianzheng of Defeng? No one in the entire dynasty is more adept at manipulating luck. If he truly wanted to steal Defeng's contract luck, he would need to conspire with the Heavenly Drum Division of the Southern Frontier. That would be underestimating this first-rank sorcerer, rather than witnessing. I suspect it was a sorcerer from Yunzhou, at least a third-rank mysterious sorcerer. He conspired with the former leader of the Heavenly Valley Division to steal Defeng's contract luck. It was because of their conspiracy that they managed to temporarily deceive Jianzheng. The contract stolen 20 years ago, and the major event that happened 20 years ago, was the Battle of Shanhai Pass, a large-scale battle that involved the forces of all 9 provinces, with over 1 million soldiers. I dreamt of the Battle of Shanhai Pass, which can serve as evidence. Although I did not participate in the battle, it's very likely that these are not my memories. Instead, they might be images brought by the revival of luck. But why is the luck placed on me? I'm just an ordinary son of the Su family. There's no reason for luck to be bestowed upon me. Such an important thing has been given to me, yet it's been silent for 20 years. It's as if it was given to me for nothing. But nothing in this world is truly free. I go and call Feng Si. Though I don't pay her silver, I still exert physical effort. Suddenly, his body trembled. His pupils contracted violently. He was like a statue, standing still for a long time, his arms slightly trembling. He wrote 3 words on the rice paper. Tax silver case. Su Qian's heart seemed to stir up a tsunami. Countless pieces of information bubbled up. So that's it. Before, I never thought the tax silver case involved anyone special. This case, there was nothing suspicious about it. Actually, the tax silver case targeted me. Reviewing the Su family situation during the tax silver case, Su Pingji failed to protect the silver, losing a full 150,000 taels of silver. Emperor Yuanjing's decree was for Su Pingji to be executed publicly. Male members of the family's 3 branches would be exiled and flogged. The female members would be sent to the teaching halls. In other words, if I hadn't crossed over, if I hadn't turned the tide and solved the tax silver case, the original Su Qian would have ended up exiled and flogged. And then the luck hidden in his body would have been taken back. Previously, I always thought that the luck in me revived as my rank increased, from 9 pin to 1 qian, from 8 pin to 3 qian, and from 7 pin to 5 qian. Now that I think about it, that wasn't the case at all. As soon as I left the capital, I started finding silver. Yet, at the time, I was still in the early stages of practice. So why didn't the original Su Qian find silver? The fact is, the luck hidden in me began to revive during that time. Therefore, the mastermind behind the scenes created the tax silver case to get me out of the capital. But here's a logical flaw. If they wanted me out of the capital, it didn't need to be so complicated. They could have just given me a random task in Chonglu County. Without the mastermind intervening personally, they could have sent a few killers to take me away. Unless my unexplained disappearance would lead to uncontrollable outcomes, they had no choice but to use the tax silver case to legitimately get me out of the capital. Granny Valley showed extreme shock and confusion when she found out I was in the capital. Wait, I know why the luck is on me. The 2 thieves who stole the luck secretly hid it in the capital, inside a newborn baby. According to normal reasoning, when something is stolen, it's definitely been taken away. It wouldn't still be left at home. This creates the dark under the lamp effect. The 2 thieves used this trick to fool the witness, the first-grade diviner. But why did they hide the luck in me? Could it be that the original Su Qian was chosen as the vessel for the luck? Su Qian pinched his brow, realizing it now. The original Su Qian was meant to be a human courier in the plan. But my appearance unexpectedly kept the original Su Qian in the capital, where the luck continued to revive. And thus, Jianzheng began to notice me. So the writer started planning again, and treated me as an important piece. Various weapons and skills were continually given to me. He wanted me to improve my cultivation, to reduce the chances of the divine. But when the Yunzhou incident occurred, I had already slipped out of Jianzheng's sight. Why didn't the Yunzhou diviners try to get me then? Unless Jianzheng had already left a contingency plan on me before I left the capital. But what was abnormal about me before I left the capital? Could it be that I was parasitized by the Godbook monk's broken wall, and I was able to return safely to Yunzhou because the Godbook monk was inside me? This made the mastermind wary, and didn't dare to act directly. They feared provoking the Godbook monk's wrath. So the mastermind must have observed me closely in Yunzhou and discovered the Godbook box inside me. They had arranged for the witness long ago. So they ignored the scheming of the remnants of the Wan Yao kingdom because they knew the Godbook box would eventually be parasitized inside me. This was also their choice for my bodyguard. Su Qian had a headache. He truly saw what it meant to be a master strategist. subtle as grass and snake's tracks. Su Qian became more and more frustrated. But all of this was related to his own secrets, and he couldn't afford to pause for a moment. There were just too many mysteries regarding the Battle of Shanhai Pass. It was useless to try to figure it out on his own. I still need to go to the Yamen to check out a case. After changing clothes, he headed to the front hall. He saw a goose-egg-faced, big-eyed beauty, Chu Kaiwei, enjoying delicious food with Xia Doubting. Su Qian greeted her, saying, "Miss Kaiwei, long time no see." After speaking, he thought to himself, "How long has it been since I last saw her? Ever since you joined the 5th senior sister. I've been thinking of breaking up with you." Chu Kaiwei smiled and said, "I visit the Su residence often. It's just that you're always at the Yamen during the day, so you don't see me." Lena added, "Miss Kaiwei and I get along well." Xia Doubting chimed in loudly, "Me too. Me too." Su Qian thought to himself, "Do you connect because of similar intelligence levels, or because you both love food?" He couldn't help but pray silently. "Lena, didn't you say you were going to Gienyu Tower? Why are you still at home snacking?" The 3 women perked up and said excitedly, "Oh, we almost forgot." Sir Su said, "We could eat freely at Gienyu Tower for 3 days." Chu Kaiwei, "Come with me," Lena added. Su Qian was speechless. He wished he could slap himself for reminding them. After settling the bill, he headed to the night watchman's yamen. First, he stopped by the main hall and instructed the beaters to patrol the streets. His subordinate sighed, "Boss, you're only on duty 3 days a week, and nobody seems to care. If it were us, we'd have been dismissed long ago." Su Qian said sternly, "Enough chatter, get to work." But the beaters weren't fazed and joked, "Boss, we heard you're a regular at the Jiaofeng division. We'd like to invite you there tonight." The other beaters chimed in, "We think he's just looking for a guide. He's still a rookie. Last year, he just reached the entry level for martial artists." Hearing this, Su Qian felt a little guilty. He had barely paid attention to his subordinates, unlike the guidance he once. After thinking for a moment, Su Qian said, "Fine, after work, I'll take you all out and treat you. With that kind of anger, you don't deserve to go to Jiaofeng division. Stick with the boss, and you can freeload for life." After painting a nice picture, Su Qian went to the archives. He found the relevant documents there. According to the Yamen's investigation, Minister of Revenue Zhou Xianping had embezzled over 2 million taels of silver in the past 20 years. But when his house was raided, only a few thousand taels were found. Where did all that silver go? Even if he lived extravagantly for 20 years, in this era of cheap prices, he couldn't possibly have spent 2 million taels. Zhou Xianping died on the way to exile, probably silenced by the hidden mastermind. Someone in the court must be involved. Zhou was their man, that much is certain. But besides Zhou Xianping, are there other people behind this? If so, who could it be? I can't just let this slide. The music is so bad, it's making my head spin. Turns out it was always Jianzheng who helped me resist the overwhelming pressure. My situation is terrible. Whoever the enemy is, they'll definitely take the luck inside me. I can't just wait to die like this. Right, there's still some luck from the Jade River in me. That belongs to the Taoist from the ancient tomb. He'll act. But can the mysterious sorcerer take my luck? I shouldn't put my hopes on an ancient human whose fate is unknown. I'll set a small goal for now. In 2 years, I'll get promoted at least 1 rank and gain more power. Although the Great Phoenix is weak, it still has a lot of talent. There are corrupt officials and wronged people, literary officials with old silver coins, and an army of several million. This is what I can rely on. My second goal, I must be promoted to C-Ping by the end of the year. Strength is my greatest reliance. With strength, I can go from being a pawn to becoming the player. Su Qian looked again. He found there were too few documents on the Battle of Shanhaiguan. When he couldn't proceed any further, he suddenly remembered. That Wei Dad was the commander of that battle. Why not go directly to him for a chat? With this thought, he quickly made his way to Haoshi Tower. As Wei Dad's most beloved son, he didn't even wait for the announcement, just ran up with a grin. He immediately told Wei Dad about the request from Taoist Jin Lian and the list of rewards. Wei Yuan nodded slowly, his expression softening as he said, "I had guessed it." Su Qian immediately assumed a humble posture, saying, "I've been so reckless. I'm sure I'll make loyal officials in the court resent me." He came to ask Wei Yuan about the history of the Battle of Shanhaiguan, but doing so would make it seem like he was using his superior as a tool, which was not something a smart subordinate should do. If he changed his approach, the order would have been different. Su Qian came to Haoshi Tower to report something, with the inquiry being secondary. Wei Yuan smiled and shook his head. "Not at all. Though you delayed the heavenly conflict, you didn't stop it. Those who wanted to see you imprisoned and executed are mostly just angry with you." Su Qian let out a breath of relief. He then said, "Thanks to the list's reward, I've already mastered the Vajra divine art." Wei Yuan wasn't surprised by this. He simply muttered, "N." Su Qian waited for a moment, but when Wei Yuan didn't speak, he immediately said, "I'm curious how one practices the 5th looking at the view outside the tower. Wei Yuan spoke gently. First, you need to understand what transformation is. Come, throw a punch to the left. Su Qian didn't understand his intention, but he followed the order. He clenched his fist and struck to the left. Wei Yuan tapped his shoulder and upper arm, smiling as he said, "There's a clear tremor here." Su Qian answered blankly, "That's a must." He thought to himself, "You're an ancient person, so I won't bother telling you about these high-level concepts like the principle that forces are mutual. When you throw a punch, whether or not it hits a target, your arm naturally transmits force. This naturally leads to shaking in your shoulder and muscle tissue. If you hit something, your arm also takes on a reactive force. But at the transformation stage, there's no shaking. A martial artist at this level can perfectly control their own power, not wasting even a bit. Why are the major systems afraid of a martial artist advance? They fear martial artists at 5th rank or higher, those who have achieved transformation. Understand? Su Qian was even more puzzled. But that doesn't fit the principles of mechanics. Wait, I just remembered. Back when Yang Yin and Jiang Luzong fought over me, they had a brawl in the Yaman's training arena. Those two golden gongs fought without any recoil. There was no reaction force. It seriously violated the laws of mechanics. Back then, I didn't understand it all. Turns out that was the extraordinary nature of 5th rank transformation. Wei Yuan continued. Now that you've reached this level, let me tell you more about the martial artist system. Before the 5th rank, talent accounts for 30%, effort accounts for 30%, and resources account for 40%. After the 5th rank, talent accounts for 60%, effort for 20%, and resources for 20%. Before the 5th rank, as long as you have techniques and resources, and your talent isn't terrible, you can reach the 6th rank. It's as common as cattle. At the 5th rank, numbers start to drop. At the 3rd rank, even more so. The Defeng court only has one Duke of the North. Mastering every bit of one's strength relies on a martial artist's understanding. No external forces can help. At the Night Watchman's Yamen, there's only one treatise on pulse theory. It might help you make connections with other concepts, but whether or not you can reach the transformation stage still depends on you. Su Qian keenly picked up on Wei Yuan's hidden meaning. He asked, "Are there still 3 rare people in the Jianghu?" Wei Yuan nodded. "The waters are deep, and there are many turtles. Don't underestimate the heroes of the grasslands. However, they are few and far between. They tend to follow the rules. The court's attitude towards them is one of appeasement. They are allowed to become powerful figures in their regions. If you get the chance, you can visit Jianzhou. It's the place where martial arts are most prosperous in Defeng." Su Qian immediately understood. No wonder Wei Yuan always wanted me to go to the Jianghu. It seems like the Jianghu is quite interesting. He absent-mindedly asked, "Wei Gong, I came to read history books." Wei Yuan laughed. His sarcastic tone made Su Qian feel a bit embarrassed. "You actually read history books?" Su Qian forced a smile. "I do read books from time to time. After all, I'm still half a scholar. I found that, apart from the Buddhist and the myriad monsters Jiazi cleansing ritual, the Battle of Shanhaiguan was one of the rare large-scale wars in the history of the 9 provinces. How did this war start? The records in the history books are vague. Only you, Wei Gong, as the former commander of the military, must be crystal clear about it." Wei Yuan thought for a long time. His gaze grew deep and wistful. After recalling for a long while, he slowly said, "In the 13th year of Yuan Jin, the southern Manchu tribes, led by the ancient tribes, attacked Defeng's southern frontier. They captured and plundered hundreds of miles. When the court received the report, they immediately organized troops to drive the Manchu south. But in August of that year, the northern Manchu tribes joined forces with the Demon tribe and formed 200,000 cavalry. The Demon soldiers, with the ferocity of lions and tigers, marched south to attack Defeng. Defeng suffered greatly. After a year of war, in the 14th year of Yuan Jin, they abandoned the northwest's 2 states, losing thousands of miles of land, focusing all efforts to resist the southern Manchu tribes. In the autumn of that year, the Crown Demon Kingdom occupied the 2 states and announced the restoration of the kingdom. Once Chuzhou and Jingzhou break away, the northern Manchu tribes, the Demon tribes, and the myriad monsters kingdom will form a triangular power. Whether it's marching south to attack Defeng or west to confront the Buddhist kingdom, the 3 factions can form the tightest of alliances. They will all be interconnected. That's why in the 15th year of Yuan Jin, the former Buddhist kingdom was destroyed. The Buddhist kingdom and Defeng joined forces, and within 3 months, they retook Chuzhou and Jingzhou. Defeng was able to catch its breath. They could spare more troops, and march south to strike the southern Manchu tribes. Su Qian nodded slowly. So, it turns out that the myriad monsters kingdom remnants did participate in the Battle of Shanhaiguan. The 9-tailed heavenly fox, the demon princess, had an ultimate goal of restoring her kingdom. The defeat at Shanhaiguan made her realize how strong the Buddhist sect was. To restore her kingdom, she would have to weaken the Buddhist sect. That's why she began plotting to steal the sacred texts from the monks. Once you understand the other side's objectives, many things become traceable, and you can calmly respond to them. Then, he thought of another issue. The rise of the great Buddhist law. would surely cause a huge stir in the Western regions, with the struggle of the will being inevitable. If the Buddhist sect splits at that time, what will the nine-tailed heavenly fox think? What she spent hundreds of years failing to achieve? A small silver-robed man from and caused the Buddhist sect to split. Wei Yuan continued. In the 16th year of Yuan Jin, the northern and southern Manchu tribes, the northern demon tribes, and the remnants of the myriad monsters kingdom, along with the northeast witch god sect, gathered at Shanhaiguan. They staked everything on this battle. Intending to engage in a final battle with the Western Buddhist sect and Defeng, they sent over 1 million troops from all directions. The war lasted for 6 months without rest. In the end, Defeng and the Buddhist kingdom emerged victorious. This is known as the Battle of Shanhaiguan. Su Qian asked, why did the witch god sect suddenly get involved? Wei Yuan answered, naturally, they saw a profit to be gained. The witch god sect has always been hostile towards Defeng. This goes back to an event when Defeng was founded. Su Qian inwardly muttered, I know this one. The founding emperor of Defeng cut ties with the witch god sect. It takes someone to say sweetie 1,000 times, and then after establishing a country, turn around and call them Lady Nyo. The start of the Battle of Shanhaiguan was the joint forces of the southern and northern Manchu tribes. But initially, it was the ancient tribe leading the southern Manchu forces to attack Defeng's borders. Then, the northern Manchu forces also moved south to attack Defeng. Here, you can see that it was the former leader of the Tiangu tribe who clenched his fist in the crowd, rallying the forces and inciting the war. This fits with the two thieves' plan. The other thief was a sorcerer, and the sorcerer system was derived from the witchcraft system. Back then, when the witch god sect got involved in the Battle of Shanhaiguan, this mysterious sorcerer must have played a role in stirring the pot, acting as a catalyst. Su Qian could only imagine. The myriad monsters kingdom must have known that I possessed the Chi Fate, and they must have discovered it from that incident. No, the theft of Chi Fate was a scheme between two thieves behind the scenes. Before my Chi Fate awakened, I didn't even notice the conspiracy. That demon princess, how did she find out about the Chi Fate within me? She must have known. Otherwise, she wouldn't have allowed the sacred texts and monks to parasitize me. Let's put that aside for now. I'll set a long-term goal. First, I need to find out the true reason why the leader of the Tiangu tribe did it to steal the Chi Fate and suppress the spirit god. The mysterious sorcerer might have other purposes. As Su Qian was lost in thought, Wei Yuan suddenly asked, is there anything else? Su Qian shook his head. The fact that he possessed the Chi Fate, although both Jianzheng and Taoist Jinlian knew about it, was something they discovered on their own. He had never proactively told anyone. Moreover, Wei Yuan, in his heart, was number 1 or 2 in the Defeng Empire's hierarchy. If Wei Yuan knew that the decline of Defeng's power was due to the Chi Fate being stolen and transferred to himself, how would Wei Yuan choose? He was still my greatest support, but I can't risk my life and livelihood for a bet. Wei Yuan stared at him. Think carefully. Is there anything else? Su Qian met his gaze, then shook his head. No, there's nothing. In a dimly lit room, a pale hand gripped a brush, writing in reverse. Dear Master, recently, many things have happened in Defeng. As the inspection concluded, the factional struggles subsided. Wei Yuan and Wang Shoufu joined forces to rectify hidden corruption. From my little sources I learned, their next target is to thoroughly investigate the army's encroachment on farmland and reduce excess taxation. Indeed, the two working together can sweep the court clean. But as long as Yuan Jing does not give up cultivation, he is like an insatiable glutton, devouring Defeng's national strength. The tax reduction policy will surely be obstructed. Rest assured. In the next decade, Defeng's strength will surely plummet to its lowest point. With the Buddhist kingdom losing this strong ally, even with all its might, it will be unable to hold on. If another Shanhai battle arises, victory will be ours. By the way, I have good news to share. During Styangjian's duel with the Buddhist sect, the silver-robed Su Qian proposed the idea of the great Buddhist law, causing Doro Arhat to accept an initiation. I predict that the western regions will experience great turmoil this year. This is a foundation for our victory. I humbly asked, what are your plans for him? The pale hand put down the brush and stared at the secret letter in silence. Truly an extraordinary young man. His future is boundless. At Styangjian's side, the stone door leading to the underground chamber creaked open. A ninth-ranked white-robed figure called into the depths. Senior Brother Yang. Half a cycle has passed. You can come out now. A few seconds later, a figure in white walked backward up the stairs, stubbornly showing only the back of his head to the world. I, Yang Qianhuan, will return to the world. No one can suppress me. The ninth-ranked sorcerer casually reminded him, next time, don't do anything foolish. Jianzheng said that if you behave like Su Qian again, you'll be locked in the underground chamber for life. Yang Qianhuan huffed. Why would I need to learn from him? He merely did what I wanted to do. The ninth-ranked sorcerer inwardly cursed. What a lunatic. Yang Qianhuan straightened his posture and said in a calm tone, what happened in the outside world during my retreat underground? The white-robed sorcerer replied, plenty. The heavenly conflict has ended. Yang Qianhuan nodded with some regret. Chu Yuanjin's combat prowess is remarkable. Though I've never met Li Miaojin, she's likely no weakling. It's a shame I didn't get to see them fight. So, who won in the end? The 9th-ranked junior said. Neither of them won. This outcome surprised Yang Qianhuan. A tie? The junior replied. No, the winner was Su Qian. He single-handedly fought against the two outstanding disciples of the Taoist sects and defeated them in full view of everyone. His fame knows no bounds. Yang Qianhuan's breathing paused. With his years of experience in achieving narrow victories, he could sense the subtleties of the situation. One man, defeating the two great disciples of the Taoist sects in front of everyone? Tell me exactly how it happened, Yang Qianhuan asked, his voice trembling slightly. The junior thought for a moment and replied, I only heard it secondhand. The conflict took place on the outskirts of the capital, by the Wei River. It's said that Su Qian arrived on a small boat, accompanied by the sound of a melodious zither. He even recited a poem. To wield the blade, to stand tall, why not avenge? Unavenged grievances turn to hate. 1,000 battles call me not a man, born with 2 eyes to crush the crowd. Watching a mere boy rise to the throne, anger ignites the stage for another strike. A single blade to cleave life's path, 2 hands to suppress heaven and man. Yang Qianhuan instantly flew into a rage. Damn it, why is it always Su Qian? Who gets these opportunities? Why was I born to endure these injustices, always missing my chance? The white-robed junior continued to rub salt in the wound. Actually, during this heavenly conflict, His Majesty sent people to invite you out of retreat, to stop the two from fighting. But the supervisor refused, citing that you were sealed underground. Yang Qianhuan froze in place, his voice trembling as he asked, Are you sure this is true? The white-robed junior firmly nodded. Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you, senior brother? With a thud, Yang Qianhuan seemed utterly devastated, barely able to stand. He slid down the wall slowly, kneeling on the ground and clutching his head repeatedly. Yang Qianhuan cried out in despair. Once again, the supervisor has wronged me. The next day, Su Qian returned home from Jiafengxi. On the way, he picked up Zhongli. Upon arrival, he saw Taoist Jin Lian, Heng Yuan from number 6, and Chu Yuanjin from number 4 arriving one after another. Su Qian greeted them warmly, though he couldn't help feeling puzzled. Why isn't the old silver coin pretending to be a cat today? He wondered. Taoist Jin Lian smiled and said, Lord Su, please call Miss Li Miaojin and Lina out. I have something to discuss with you all. Su Qian promptly returned to the inner courtyard and called for Li Miaojin and Lina. The cheerful little dark-skinned southerner exclaimed, Everyone from the Heaven and Earth Society is here except for number 1. Chu Yuanjin suddenly asked, By the way, where's number 3? Li Miaojin quickly glanced at Su Bai. Remembering their agreement to keep identities secret, she refrained from answering. Lina also glanced at him, thinking nervously, I let it slip earlier. What do I do now? Su Qian kept a calm face and replied, He went to meet with the Wang family's daughter. Chu Yuanjin froze. A date. Su Qian nodded, without refuting. Chu Yuanjin laughed. As expected of a charming scholar, Su Xinyan did indeed go to meet the Wang family's daughter, but it was a one-sided date in her eyes. Su Xinyan simply thought he was keeping it. Taoist Jin Lian coughed and said, I plan to leave the capital in a few days. This didn't surprise anyone. Taoist Jin Lian had originally fled to the capital to escape the pursuit of the D-sect's demonic cultivators. After recuperating in the capital for more than half a year, it really is time to leave. Chu Yuanjin took a sip of tea and waited quietly. If it were merely to announce his departure, Taoist Jan Lian wouldn't have gathered us here at the Su residence. Heng Yuan thought to himself, unable to stop his hands from coming together in a Buddhist gesture. Amitabha. All banquets must come to an end. Li Miaojin still harbored resentment in her heart. She wasn't too fond of Taoist Jin Lian, thinking to herself, that old Taoist interrupted my duel with Ning Yen. I didn't even want to see him today. Lina, on the other hand, simply munched away. This melon is so sweet. At this moment, Taoist Jin Lian said wistfully, the reason I infiltrated the D-sect back then was to steal a treasure, the 9-colored lotus. It can transform all things. Even stone can be imbued with spiritual essence. The D-sect's demonic cultivators have been searching for me ever since, trying to retrieve the lotus. I've been hiding in the capital to throw them off. I let them believe I had brought the lotus to the capital, but in fact, I secretly moved it to a hidden location long ago. As the 9-colored lotus matures, its aura can no longer be contained. It might attract the D-sect's demonic cultivators. Therefore, I must return to guard it. Su Qian's heart burned with excitement. It can even transform stone? Taoist. My silicone wife from my past life could really use your help. Chu Yuanjin frowned in thought. The 9-colored lotus. I think I read about it in an ancient text. Li Miaojin's eyes brightened. The D-sect's second most prized treasure is maturing. Taoist Jin Lian chuckled. When the time comes, the demonic cultivators from the D-sect will surely come looking for it. I'll set up a little trap for them. I hope you all will lend a hand. Su Qian frowned. Will the D-sect's patriarch intervene? Taoist Jin Lian nodded. He will, but he's in poor condition, asleep most of the time, and not by choice. Even if he does intervene, it'll only be a projection or a fragment of his soul. His strength will be very limited. Li Miaojin let out a breath and said, I can help, but I want 1 lotus seed as payment afterward. Taoist Jin Lian nodded. Of course, everyone will get 1 lotus seed. Su Qian will receive 2, he added. Li Miaojin raised an eyebrow, giving him a dissatisfied look. Su Qian quickly explained, because I defeated both you and Brother Chu. That's the reward Taoist Jin Lian promised me. Taoist Jin Lian turned to Lena and asked, Number 5, what do you think? Lena tilted her head. Are lotus seeds tasty? Taoist Jin Lian opened his mouth, looked at her for a long moment, and sighed. It's not about how they taste. They're a rare treasure. But if you must eat it, it'll probably be delicious. Lena clapped her hands on her chest. No problem, Taoist. I'll help. Taoist Jin Lian smiled in relief. Before the 9-colored lotus matures, I'll contact you through the Book of Earth Fragments. The Heaven and Earth Society he had established after so much planning was finally bearing fruit today. Chu Yuanjin, a 4th-grade Taoist from the Taoist sect. Li Miaojin, also a 4th grade. Though an 8th-grade warrior monk in rank, her true combat strength was extremely powerful. Heng Yuan, and the mighty southern girl Lena, yet the one who delighted him most, was the latest member, Su Qian. This kid had great luck and succeeded in everything he did. He had also pushed his Vajra divine skill to the Xiaoqing stage, capable of both tanking and dealing heavy damage. In battle, he would be a tremendous asset. Give these kids a few more years, and perhaps one day, forming a team to take on himself might not be impossible. 2 days later, in the Imperial study, Emperor Yuanjing privately met with the Deputy General of the Northern King's forces, Chu Xianglong. The first batch of provisions will take a few more days to prepare. General Chu, no need to worry. Chu Xianglong respectfully replied, this trip to the capital is not only for escorting supplies. The Northern King also assigned me another task. Emperor Yuanjing asked curiously, what task? Chu Xianglong whispered, to escort the princess consort to the border. Emperor Yuanjing's usually calm face showed a rare sign of surprise, not out of fear or anger, but delight. He quickly masked his emotions and glanced at the elderly eunuch Chun Sheng standing nearby. Dismissed. The eunuch and other attendants bowed and silently withdrew. At the same time, Emperor Yuanjing rose from his dragon throne and quickly walked over to Chu Xianglong, his tone filled with, he's nearly ready? Chu Xianglong replied in a hushed voice, yes, everything is in place. All that's left is the princess consort. The old emperor couldn't hide his elation, smiling broadly. Excellent, excellent. The Northern King has not disappointed me. Chu Xianglong continued, I have one more request. While training, I suffered an injury and cannot sustain a prolonged fight. I request that your majesty send someone else to escort the princess consort north. The old emperor scrutinized him, his gaze turning sharp with suspicion. At this critical moment, you claim an injury from training? Chu Xianglong immediately bowed low. Your majesty, I beg your pardon. He knew that the old emperor was inherently mistrustful. If he didn't provide a satisfactory explanation, even as the Northern King's confidant, the emperor would have doubts. So he confessed in detail about plotting to acquire Su Qian's Vajra divine skill and collaborating with the Duke of Chao, using the martial arts examination as leverage. When Emperor Yuanjing finished listening, he was furious. You treacherous scoundrel! He roared. With a kick, he sent Chu Xianglong flying. He struck a few more moves in the air. The emperor lowered his voice in anger. If I didn't need you to handle this, I'd cut off your head right now. Chu Xianglong remained prostrate on the ground. Emperor Yuanjing paced back and forth in the study. After a moment of deliberation, he muttered, sending troops to escort the princess consort north is unwise. Provisions are slow and still unprepared. If they travel with the provisions, they won't reach the north until spring or early summer, at a time when various factions in court are repeatedly petitioning for a thorough investigation into the Blood Army's 1,000-mile campaign. It would be best to have the princess consort travel with the investigation team heading north. This would conceal her movement and ensure she is well guarded. However, this still poses problems. Her beauty and striking presence, even if she uses a spell to conceal her aura, her appearance will draw attention. Chu Xianglong's eye. The princess consort possesses a magical treasure that not only changes her appearance, but also conceals her aura. She can transform into an ordinary woman, he added. Yuanjing frowned. Where did she get such a treasure? Chu Xianglong replied. The princess consort said it was a gift for state affairs. She's even used it to sneak out of the estate several times. Emperor Yuanjing pondered in silence for a moment, then said, this matter is settled for now. We'll refine the details later. Su Qian walked toward Guanjing Tower, followed by a group of people. Su excitedly pointed at herself, her cheeks flushed. Master, am I about to get a physical body? Has Song Qing's human alchemy really succeeded? Will he grant it to me? Su Qian smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, young lady. Since I brought you here, I have confidence that Song Qing will give you a body. At this moment, all the alchemists simultaneously stopped their work, their eyes on the hall's entrance. Just then, Song Qing appeared from who knows where. shouting excitedly, "You're finally here. You've been back in the capital for months, yet you only show up now. I've seen you countless times, always hanging out with that ghost girl, completely forgetting our great alchemical endeavors." The other alchemists eagerly gathered around, excitedly exclaiming, "Our recent alchemy projects have all hit bottlenecks. The fellow disciples have been discussing endlessly without any breakthroughs. Were they eagerly waiting for you? Has Mr. Su's next volume of the Blue Book been written yet? We've been waiting for half a year." Crowds of people surged. Li Miaojin looked dazed, being constantly pushed back. He couldn't tell if it was an illusion. It felt like these people in white were waiting for Su Qian to give a sermon, because from their eyes, Su Qian's status seemed very high. Everyone appeared genuinely eager, especially when the Blue Book was mentioned. They lowered their postures significantly. It was too absurd. Even Su was stunned, standing there in disbelief, staring blankly at Su Qian surrounded by white-clad people. Earlier, upon hearing from Zhongli how much Song Qing valued his own work, he felt deeply frustrated, thinking this trip to the Four Heavenly Swords was a waste of time. Su Qian cleared his throat and said, "The Blue Book is not ready yet, but I promise everyone, it will be delivered by the end of the year. I'll also visit the alchemists more often when I have time to discuss alchemy with you all." The white-clad alchemists cheered, their faces lit up with joy. After the crowd quieted down, Su Qian turned to Song Qing and said, "Your work." Li Miaojin, upon hearing this, looked over with anticipation. It was uncertain if the proud and aloof Song Qing would agree. Su nervously closed her eyes, pursed her lips tightly, and clenched her fists. In the next moment, Song Qing burst out laughing. "After creating this work, my greatest regret was not getting Mr. Su's evaluation and guidance. Now, I can finally have my wish fulfilled." Li Miaojin was surprised. Is he actually this humble? Following Song Qing's lead, the group left the alchemy room, passed through a winding corridor, and arrived at a secret chamber. Song Qing knocked on the iron door, introducing it. "This door, even a martial artist of the lowest grade wouldn't be able to damage it. I spent 10 days crafting it with tempered steel. Its main feature is its durability. It's top-notch for preventing theft." Su couldn't help but blurt out, "But the walls of the Guanxin building are just an intruder wouldn't need to use the door at all." Li Miaojin nodded, adding, "Besides, who would come to Guanxin building to steal something? There's no record of such an event in history, right? What's the point of having a security door?" Song Qing was stunned as if struck by lightning, his face awkwardly looking as if he wanted to disappear on the spot. He bit his lip, frustrated, and asked, "Do you still have any questions? If not, the two of you may leave." Li Miaojin immediately stopped talking, avoiding eye contact as if she hadn't heard anything. Su Qian quickly stepped in to mediate. "Brother Song, don't take it to heart. We're all looking forward to seeing your grand demonstration." Hearing this, Song Qing regained his composure, took out a key, and unlocked the security door. He led the group into the secret chamber. Before them, a simple stand held, a human-like figure, covered by a white cloth. Song Qing walked over and lifted the white cloth. The group saw a man lying on the stand. Su Qian was initially a bit nervous, but noticing the faint movement in the man's chest, he relaxed. At least this creation was normal. He had been expecting some kind of monster. Song Qing explained. When it was first made, its physical condition was no different from that of a normal person, but every day, it has been deteriorating. I estimate that in 3 days it will die. There's no way to prevent it. Medicine has no effect. Su Qian's mind churned, wondering why medicine wouldn't work. He recalled hearing once that modern humans transported to ancient times could become mobile sources of infection, leading to the destruction of the world. The core idea behind this theory is that ancient people didn't have immunity to modern viruses. Meanwhile, the human immunity to natural viruses can be passed down to descendants. This body's inability to absorb medicinal herbs may be for a similar reason. Li Miaojin examined it briefly, then said with brightened eyes, "This body is clean. No spiritual essence, no soul, better than the shell of a living person. It's ideal as a vessel for Su. This touches on an important detail. A normal person's soul fits their body perfectly, but when a ghost inhabits a body, the lack of full compatibility causes rejection. The living person's vitality diminishes, and the ghost's negative energy dries up, resulting in mutual harm. Once the person dies, the body inevitably decays, making it an unsuitable long-term host. But this body lacks a soul. If Su were to inhabit it, the body might actually nourish the soul, making it no different from a living person." Su Qian quickly introduced, "This is a friend I made at the Tianzong. If she takes over the body you created, it might solve the problem you've faced with alchemizing human bodies." Song Qing nodded in realization, finally understanding their reason for coming. At this point, Li Miaojin turned to Su and suggested, "Why not give it a try?" Su, who had been waiting eagerly, nodded immediately. She separated from her current vessel and entered the man's body. Upon seeing this, Su Qian opened his mouth, but couldn't find the words to express his feelings. You promised to be my concubine, but this isn't what I expected. I wanted a sweet, peaceful life, not to stir up chaos. However, at that moment, Su was suddenly forced out. She returned to the paper doll. Song Qing frowned. What happened? Li Miaozhen paused for a moment, then guessed, I understand. This body is not like a normal vessel. It appears human, but it's more like stone. A ghost like Su can't inhabit something like stone. Song Qing furrowed his brow, saying, so I created a body that looks human, but is actually stone? Su bit her lip, her bright eyes instantly dimming. Disheartened by this outcome, she found it difficult to accept. Song Qing bowed deeply at a 90-degree angle, saying loudly, Mr. Su, you are a genius in alchemy. Your knowledge of life alchemy is unparalleled. Please teach me. Li Miaozhen was overjoyed at his words, eagerly looking at Su Qian. Exactly. It was Su Ningyan who taught Song Qing about life alchemy. He's even written challenging books that rank 6 alchemists. Treat with utmost respect. With Su Ningyan's guidance, this body might have a chance of recovery. Su Qian was a bit dumbfounded. First of all, how would I know? Talking about it is one thing, but this is beyond my expertise. Su Qian's mind raced until he remembered yesterday's Heavenly Society meeting. He quickly decided what to say. To my knowledge, there exists a rare treasure called the 9-colored lotus. It can imbue all things with spiritual essence. Even stone can develop spirit essence. This body needs its transformation. Song Qing murmured. 9-colored lotus. Does such a miraculous thing exist in this world? The members of the Heavenly Society suddenly understood. Right. The 9-colored lotus can transform anything. Surely it can transform this body. Once it's enlightened, the soul will be able to merge. Su, realizing there was still hope, wished fervently for the 9-colored lotus to mature quickly, so she could gain a brand new body. Su Qian chuckled. The 9-colored lotus is a treasure of the Earth sect. In essence, it's also a kind of alchemical material. After all, everything can be alchemy. Song Qing earnestly remarked. Everything can be alchemy. Mr. Su, you are truly a remarkable alchemy genius. At one point, I was even angry that your second uncle never brought you to the 4 heavenly swords, to apprentice and learn. Su Qian silently pitied his second uncle for a few seconds. After all, second uncle has it hard enough already. Let's not add to his burdens. Before leaving, Su Qian pulled Song Qing aside to a quiet spot and said, Brother Song, I need to ask a favor. Song Qing never refused Su Qian's requests. Go ahead. Su Qian lowered his voice. I need you to craft a female body. He paused, glancing around. I'll figure out how to get the 9-colored lotus when the time comes. Hearing that Su Qian could get the 9-colored lotus, Song Qing became instantly excited. Sure, I'll make it happen. Su Qian's voice grew even quieter. But I have conditions. First, the female body must be beautiful, extraordinarily beautiful. And then, he gestured towards his chest and grinned mischievously. Here, this part has to be big. Song Qing, having no interest in women, frowned and asked, how big? Su Qian thought for a moment, then replied earnestly, like Kai Wei's 3-finger method. Time flew by, and before long, it was afternoon at the Su mansion. Su Qian saw his younger brother reading at his desk and teased him with a smile. Did you have fun with Miss Wang today? Su Erlang's expression turned strange. He said, Big brother, I think Miss Wang is infatuated with my good looks. Su Qian was slightly surprised. Although the wording was off, the meaning was clear. His younger brother had actually caught on. Su Qian frowned deeply. She frequently compliments my looks. Her actions and behavior also suggest she wants to get closer to me. Su Qian asked, and what do you think of that? Su Qian expressed his stance. The Wang family estate and Wei Yuan are political rivals. You're Wei Yuan's trusted aide. How could I possibly get involved with Miss Wang? Su Qian fell into contemplation. I've never wanted Erlang to bear the mark of Yin Dao, Smoke Island, but I'm troubled by the fact that he lacks backing at court. If he could align with the Wang estate, but this isn't something to take lightly. Who knows if this idea might lead Erlang into disaster? After thinking it through for a while, he said, it's your decision. The road ahead is one you must walk on your own. In the court, there are no permanent enemies. Even Lord Wei and the Wang estate are currently working together to address corruption and abuses. Besides, even if you and Miss Wang do end up together, it's she who would marry into the Su family, not the other way around. There's a fundamental difference. You'd still be free. Su Xinyan felt a bit embarrassed. Big brother, your words make it sound like I really have something going on with Miss Wang. And besides, she only likes me because I look good. If I were ugly, would she still like me? Su Qian replied, that depends on how you read the word normal. He didn't think there was anything wrong with Miss Wang appreciating Su Erlang's looks. He thought about his own affections for Linen, Huai Qin, Kai Wei, Li Miaozhen, Su, and even Lina, not to mention that he liked Guisher too. They were all attractive. He even liked the young mare. As for the bell, he also thought about it constantly. Later, he returned to the western courtyard, where he practiced slow martial arts movements. In the courtyard, following Xingmai's recorded method, he focused on feeling the flow of energy, the circulation of his blood, and the expansion and contraction of his muscles with each exertion. After half an hour, he finished his practice, sat down at the table, and took a sip of warm tea, muttering to himself, "Too slow. Xingmai theory is at best an auxiliary measure. Whether I can reach the transformative state ultimately depends on myself. If I continue like this, forget about reaching rank 4 by the end of the year. Even rank 5 will be difficult. I need to find a way to strengthen myself. As my fate awakens, the hidden mastermind won't stand idly by. Even with the support of both the mysterious scripture and the divine book, I'm not entirely safe. The enemy is likely at least a rank 3 warlock, possibly backed by even greater forces. Wait. The heaven and earth / gathers all energy into a single strike, and the transformative state also condenses energy into one place, wasting nothing, producing maximum power at minimum cost. They're essentially the same principle. This realization filled him with excitement, and he couldn't wait to test it out. Su Qian stood in the courtyard, took a deep breath, calmed his emotions, and focused inward. Without aligning his moves to his energy flow, he relied solely on physical strength. He threw a punch into the air. A crisp cracking sound erupted. Since he didn't channel energy into it, there was no widespread destruction. His arm still trembled slightly, but in the instant he struck, his energy did flow in a concentrated burst. Although much was lost along the way, this result made Su Qian ecstatic. He was on the right track. By continuing to practice this way, he could significantly shorten the time to reach rank 5. However, a new thought suddenly crossed his mind. The heaven and earth slash. Was it the skill that the heaven sword gifted to the night watchman? A subtle contribution from Jianjing? Su Qian's scalp tingled. Could it be that even this step was part of his plan? Meanwhile, in the Imperial Palace's Imperial study, just after the Mao hour, eunuchs dispatched by the emperor summoned the palace officials to the Golden Hall. In the background, the officials' tone remained steady and calm. None dared to act out. Your Majesty, in recent days you've submitted petitions, requesting a thorough investigation into the Blood Map's 3,000-mile case. I share the same concern. I wish to send a delegation to the border to investigate. Who among you is a suitable candidate? Wang Shoufu stepped forward and said, Your Majesty, this case is of great importance. It should be handled jointly by the 3 judicial offices and the Night Watch. This is a long-standing, internal practice of the court. For major cases, it's almost always the 3 judicial offices and the Night Watch, handling them together. This ensures both collaboration and mutual oversight. Yuanjing Emperor followed up, then who will take charge? Minister Zhu, do you have a suitable candidate? Upon hearing the words, take charge, a figure clad in silver finery instantly came to mind for Zhu. It was a young, flamboyant individual. After a brief pause, Wang Shoufu immediately suggested, the Night Watch's silver badge Su Qian can serve as the lead officer. Yuanjing Emperor's gaze swung. What do you think, Minister Zhu? The officials all voiced their agreement. It is a fine choice. When Su Qian heard the news, he was startled and wide-eyed. What? I'm going to lead the investigation into the blood map case? This is not like the Yunzhou case. In the Yunzhou case, Zhang Xuanfu was the lead officer, and Su was just part of the team. This time, he would be the nominal leader. The pros and cons were obvious. If he succeeded in solving the case, he would receive the credit. If the blood map's existence was confirmed and he uncovered the truth, the reward would be unimaginable. Su Qian had been lamenting the lack of opportunities for achievement. This was like a pillow delivered right as he wanted to nap, but the risks were equally apparent. If he couldn't solve the case, he would be mocked for boasting, and that would be the least of his concerns. If the blood map's 3,000-mile scandal was truly the result of the Northern King's misconduct, if it was due to false military reports from, then Su Qian would be in serious danger. Su Qian looked across at Wei Yuan, the senior official in a dark green robe. The officials have recommended me to lead the case. Could it be they have ill intentions? Why didn't the emperor? Why would he agree to make a silver badge official like me the lead investigator? You must send a gold badge to protect me. Wei Yuan's tone was calm. Not bad. You've become more perceptive. In the past, you wouldn't have tried to guess the court official's intentions, or the emperor's reasoning. Su Qian grumbled inwardly. No, it's just that, with you, the real power player, by my side, I was too lazy to think. But outwardly, he humbly said, please enlighten me, Lord Wei. Wei Yuan analyzed. There are 2 reasons. First, a provincial inspector represents the court, a position of immense authority, even the Northern King, but at most be on equal footing with them. The emperor does not want to send a provincial inspector to the north to antagonize the Northern King, possibly due to personal motives or political considerations. Appointing a silver badge like you as the lead investigator avoids these issues. Su Qian frowned. But doesn't that mean my hands will be tied during the investigation? Wei Yuan chuckled. A coveted opportunity like this is highly sought after. Otherwise, why would the court officials nominate you? If the Northern King did falsify military reports to avoid responsibility, and the lead investigator fails to uncover it, that's fine. But if you do uncover it, Su Qian's heart skipped a beat. Then you might face elimination to silence you. Wei Yuan continued calmly. This is the second reason why the officials recommended you. Su Qian cursed inwardly. These scheming old foxes. But Wei Yuan didn't seem concerned about him at all. He quickly asked, what should I do? Wei Yuan gave an 8-character strategy. Act dignified. Investigate discreetly. When you go north, remember to proceed carefully. Try not to provoke any conflict with the Northern King's subordinates. If you appear weak, they might let their guard down. When you can investigate covertly, do so. Avoid being overt. If you find evidence incriminating the Northern King, hide it and only reveal it upon returning to the capital. And if there's an assassination attempt, the Northern King is unlikely to act personally. I'll send Yang Yin to accompany you. You're already quite capable, and your Vajra divine skill has reached a minor completion. I'm not too worried on that front. Su Qian nodded. That's what I was thinking as well. Still, he couldn't help feeling a bit uneasy. If the Northern King acted personally, no amount of gold badge escorts would suffice. While he didn't know the exact power level of a rank 3 expert, he knew there was only one rank 3 in the entire court, while rank 4 experts were numerous. In truth, he wasn't afraid of assassination attempts. He was more concerned that the Northern King might step in directly. If that happened, he'd have no choice but to risk everything, summoning the Sacred Book Monk to confront the rank 3 powerhouse. But the Sacred Book Monk would inevitably drain the life force of innocence, something Su Qian didn't want to see. What's more, afterward, he'd have to live as a fugitive, unable to return to the court. In that case, the mastermind would be overjoyed. Wei Yuan continued, you'll need to strike a balance yourself. If the situation turns unfavorable, it's acceptable to withdraw from the case. Upon returning to the capital, the worst that will happen is a reprimand. Su Qian hesitated for a moment. The words, blood map, 3,000 miles, suddenly sprang to mind. He lowered his voice and said, if this is real, I won't withdraw. I won't turn a blind eye. After speaking, Su Qian added, but I won't act recklessly. You can rest assured, Lord Wei. Wei Yuan looked at him for a long moment, his gaze a mix of appreciation and helplessness. In the end, he said calmly, you'll depart in 3 days. Prepare yourself in the meantime.